We'll go? Okay.
Hope she feels better.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to the Basalt Town Council work session. And it's a work session, so we will be handing it over staff to present. I want to say Happy New Year's to everyone. And I am your rent-a-mayor for the night, so cool. So who's going to start off on the capital improvement plan?
I can, Your Honor.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're presenting tonight the first comprehensive formal capital improvement program for your consideration. The CIP is a long-range planning tool for both projecting community needs and for identifying resources to fund them. It's considered a best practice in financial management from the International City Management Association, or ICMA. As a 5-year plan, it's updated annually to reflect any changes in town council priorities and/or changes in funding sources due to economic conditions or other conditions. CIPs typically include major investments such as parks, recreation facilities, utility infrastructure, streets, bridges, public buildings, and upgraded technology. It's also a companion document typically to the annual operating budget, projecting project costs, operating costs such as maintenance, personnel, and supplies. These then can be planned to be budgeted in the appropriate year when the capital project occurs. The document you have tonight is preliminary. It does identify the projects that we're recommending for consideration, including already adopted 2017 projects. So it's this year plus 4 years into the future. Due to time constraints, we were not able to do project descriptions of each project, but we did put in some samples so you can see what that looks like. We will have complete project descriptions before the next regular council meeting. Meanwhile, we're open to comments and any questions you may have. And before that, I'll ask Finance Director Judy to make any comments she would like to make.
Well, as we work through it, just if we have questions, we'll address them and clean them up before we get back on the 24th.
Right, okay.
Boyd?
Do you want any comments, or would you like our financial advisor to make some preliminary comments? He's here.
Yep, if Bruce is willing.
Bruce, you have to use a microphone.
Thanks, Mayor and council members. I just wanted to share, I've had conversations with both Ron and Judy about this, and I think this is a really great start on a CIP in terms of setting a sort of a first building block for this type of planning. I do think as you refine it and as you use it as a practical tool, next step that we often advise our clients to take is to really drill in specifically on cash and debt assumptions respectively for each project, so that you can see, okay, if this is a cash funded project, what's the net impact in any given year on your fund balance for the post fund or your general fund, for instance. And if you're going to be using any sort of debt financing to spread out that cost, typically for a larger project, you know, what are the assumptions there? Is it 5-year repayment, 10-year, 15-year? And so that you can project out that debt service also for those funds post general, whatever the case might be. And so by taking that additional step and then really revising that CIP every year, looking at what new projects need to be added, what reprioritizations you as the council want to take on, those two things really, I think, will help achieve a very robust and very relevant CIP for the town going forward. That's all I had.
Question. So do you consider a CIP a important tool when considering taking on significant new amounts of debt for some particular project?
It can be. It's not, as you and I discussed earlier today, Bernie, it's not something that all communities have, or not in a comprehensive way. Sometimes a city will look at a specific project and say, we're going to move forward with this because it's a high enough priority without having it in the overall context of a CIP. But all things considered, yes, I would agree with what Ron said as it being a good practice to have. And it certainly gives you confidence as a governing body to know you have the overall picture. So in that regard, I think it's a good thing that you're moving forward on.
And if I could add, I do think it would be really, really useful as a tool as management changes. We had a fairly good start on 13. In 2013, that department head spent quite a bit of time. Boyd and I spent a lot of time looking at each and every vehicle, the number of miles it was driven, our roads and how much it cost per mile of road. And then it kind of got dropped with everything that was going on across the street. So I think as a new manager comes in, it would be a very useful tool for them to have, really shorten the learning curve, is saying, this is what we've got going, this is how, these are our priorities, and this is what we're gonna do. Because, like the underpass, since we started, Larry's gone, and we've got 11 different funding sources on that. So it's fairly, and then Bruce and I will still be doing some certificates of participation. And so even though the underpass will be done, we have the funding of the CDOT money that will be repaid, and then the town of Basalt share. And so even though we finally got it under construction, even when it's done, we're still gonna have some debt service with it. And I think that's when the new manager comes on, I think understanding your current obligations is important before they know where, what else we can spend money on.
Anyone else? I got, first of all, I want to thank Judy and Ron for making this happen, and every other department head who put this in, because this is really good transparency. I want to thank the town, and especially Judy, for kind of making this happen without a CIP, and we're not in big trouble considering everything that we've done. But this is the start of something much clearer to the public of what we're gonna spend on. Questions I had was, are you gonna put all buildings in there? Cause right now I don't see town hall, and I don't know if you're not planning on any upgrades in the next 5 years or anything like that, but what? Where-
So Auden sent an email, and it, without a dollar amount or a time frame, it went on to future projects.
Right,
If we get an idea of when we'd like it to be on there, and we have an idea of where we would like to, put town hall or the employees, then we can start looking at numbers, and I can start working with Bruce. Are we going to an election? Are we doing certificates? Are we selling a current building that we have?
okay.
So
I was more talking about like just upgrading, keeping this building going, like, aren't there, I can imagine there's some major improvements someday that has to happen, even if we keep this building. So, that's what I was talking about, town hall, is like,
Well, right now, it shows just in your operation budget.
okay,
And so if it's not a significant number of $25,000, so we do quite a few things, and it doesn't hit that threshold.
okay. And is there any, of all the affordable housing we purchased, are there any major improvements that need to happen to any of those?
So the piece that's missing from this is to work with Boyd, and I would like to add affordable housing and list the 17 units on there, and the water department. Right now, this is just general fund.
Okay, so you're gonna do special funds? Okay, cool, because the water was my next question.
Yep.
It's like, I was like, there's a huge piece missing. Okay, cool. Well, I think it's a great start. Anybody else? Jen?
Likewise, thank you so much for all the time of putting together this great and it's helped me understand some of the current obligations, and to have that more transparent for the public and for everyone is a great way to go. Something that I would like to add that I feel is very important for our community is community values, community vision, for us to come up with somewhat of like a 12-month program where 3 months each understanding communication and the values. Many, many, many other municipalities in the state of Colorado and throughout the nation utilize these. And it's a document that, excuse me, that hangs in the council chambers and is the foundational groundwork of where council comes from. They take the community vision, excuse me, and the values and weigh it with every single item that is brought to council in consideration. I'm happy to suggest speaking with the mayor of Breckenridge or other municipalities that have gone through the process. And when you hear how much value and impact it has, I feel that it's something that would greatly influence and be a benefit to our town.
So I got a question,
Yeah.
it's more of a council comment
Mhm.
for the regular meeting, but it's something that we should bring up and see if everyone feels, kind of on the same page to direct staff to, kind of work on that
Right,
and how it's gonna also impact the rest of what staff's got going on.
exactly. And that's part of what I did not bring it up for 2017 when we were going through the budget talks, because that would have been a consultant, and I don't see it happening in 2017. I
Okay.
see it in 2018, and traditionally, it's not something that staff does. It's an outside consultant that manages and,
Like facilitate.
yeah, facilitates the process.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If I can just respond to that
Mhm.
briefly. One thing that I run into a lot in helping communities with CIPs is, especially as they add more projects and future projects like town hall, at some point you get to a question of affordability, right? And in any given year or over the course of the 5 years. And so having council priorities or council values can help in setting priorities. If you have to make a decision on, okay, which of these projects are we going to postpone, even if they're all warranted to happen in 2018 or in 2019, which can we afford to put off without undue damage to the town or the whole stitch in time saves nine thing, and which are maybe still priorities but less of a priority and we can afford to defer a year for that reason. So I see a connection between what Jen was suggesting and this capital planning, because at some point you do have to prioritize.
And I agree, I think, that's a great way to get a new town manager really involved in the community is to, kind of get their feet on the ground first and then kind of go through a community visioning type
Right.
of thing, which would be cool.
And the community visioning is like a 5-year, 15-year plan that's more ideological than actual streets and roads.
And then, well, that's the one thing is that the great thing about putting this on here is, what I worry about is that we get all these lovely priorities as a council, but our roads still need to be maintained. And we find a way, we could just defer that, and we need to, that's why the project descriptions will be a really big help, because, I wanna know kind of the information of if we're doing a road project, when was the last time we did a road project on that road? And if it's 15 years or something, we've been deferring it so long that it behooves us not to keep deferring that in the future. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for working on this. It's such a great step forward. It is massively helpful for me to see these projects and the dollars, and I know that we're going to continue to morph it and tweak it, and so it's going to become a document that's going to be even more beneficial, but thank you so much for all of you that worked on this.
Yeah, this is what we've been needing and looking for several years now. I would say I would like to see a little more detail on asphalt maintenance. Is that kind of a general heading for all kind of street repair and rejuvenation? If not, I'd like it more broken down. The post funding is more discrete by project, at least gives us some idea. But, and I would question the source for affordable housing. Willits Affordable Housing, and it says source affordable housing. Is that the Willits Rita?
No, we have, inside of the restricted funds that you got, affordable housing, so, the rent off of those units and any kind of maintenance that we do, we service the debt, the line of credit with that. So
Okay,
it's actually a restricted fund.
okay.
And you said, to clarify on Bernie's point, you said you're gonna get us the descriptions of all this stuff coming up.
Correct.
Okay.
I think we need more description, and then, Boyd's been in a plow pretty much for a week straight, so, and we do have a pretty comprehensive of what streets we would like to, program, soon, and then, the year out, we spent a lot of time on the sidewalks, on curb and gutter, on streets, and so we have that in, but, like I said, unfortunately, I think Boyd's been in a plow pretty much, since we got back and have been working on this, so.
So, are we gonna say, I had sent you an email saying, what I don't get is, how does this CIP relate to our budgetary process? And if you could give us some examples, I don't know if this is the time or we have time to do it, but give us a few hints and maybe develop it more, when we come back with this.
You can answer that too.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, Bernie, is up top here, and you're seeing zeros right now because until we get our projects in there, I would like it to tie it to our fund balances. And so then it becomes reality of when we sit down, and as Katie mentioned, I think this is a living, working document. I don't think you wait until we get into the budget cycle every year. So if we come, when it's June or July, we look at something and we say, okay, if we want to do something, what has to get moved? And so I would like to get our unrestricted and restricted fund balance in there, but until I have more comprehensive information from all the department heads, it's kind of a wasted time until we can nail down on stuff. And then when you get into the bottom numbers down here and you see a shortfall, that's when I say, okay, we really want to do the underpass, but I need to start exploring other options. Are we gonna go to the vote of the people? And that's when we came up with, it's a smaller dollar amount. It's not small to Basalt, but certainly probably not worth bonding for. And, we didn't know exactly what the CDOT timing was, so we've already done our first pay request. It took them, not even 2 weeks to turn that money around. Well, prior, some of the CDOT funding, it could take you up to a year, and that's a problem for us if we're gonna be carrying $3 million. So based on that, you're gonna see Bruce and I in front of you in March, with certificates of participation. And so I think there is some holes in here, but until we know the priorities and what's on there, and certainly if I could get Boyd out of a plow, we could tell you what streets we think are in trouble and which ones we would like to do. And then the other conversation that we've had is not spending good money and then a year later, because it's part of a master plan or doing something, in the big elephant out there is Two Rivers Road. And so we know with the underpass and the Whitewater Park going on right now that there's a lot more use of Two Rivers Road. And so I've asked that for 2017, with the exception of the guardrails that we went in and we really needed to do at the end of the hill down here, that we pretty much keep any construction off of there for fire and safety, that we keep that open, and so that we can use that. But we also know that it's getting heavier use and that we need to put some money at it. But until the River Park's done, Roaring Fork Conservancy, do we start on that end? But those are discussions that we need to drill down on. What I don't want to do is go say, okay, we just spent, a $2 or $3 million project, and then the next day somebody has a street cut permit in front of me, and I kind of like have an outer body experience. I don't want my concrete cut. So timing is some of it. And then the two pieces at the top, and I don't think we have time tonight to talk about them, but during the budget cycle, we had mentioned before that the building that the recreation department is currently in is owned by the school, and they're taking that down. And there's gonna be, there's I don't have anywhere for the recreation department to go. And so, one thought is, and I don't know, Susan pulled the lease on it, but, you know, the Wiley has been in there coming up on 5 years. Is that a possibility? And if not, where does the recreation department gonna go? We don't, I mean, they're gonna, at the end of the semester, so that's probably one thing that it's, definitely a priority, so I put it in orange up front, that it's gonna have to be addressed. Does it mean we lease somewhere? Does it mean short-term, we, you know, try to get her in this building? I don't know, and I don't think tonight we have time, so it's gonna have to be carried on to a future thing. And then the second one is Boyd and I have we've explored every option that we can think of, looked under every rock in and out of town, but the shop is we have to do something sooner rather than later. The population was around 2,000 people, and the building, actually, we bought it for $1 from Snowmass over 20 years ago, and you nearly fall through the floor when you stand over there. So those are the two that, I mean, I think they have to be put in here, but I'm not exactly sure where they go. But we're gonna need to address them sooner rather than later.
Counselor, I would just add that the connection with the CIP and the annual operating expenses is reflected on the form, the description form, at the bottom where it says future recurring costs is personnel, maintenance, and so forth. So we will identify the approximate operating expenses that are needed to support a capital project in that particular year.
Something that I noticed that Bernie reflected on and you two spoke to is just doing back of the envelope. I now understand that this list of draft ideas here, it doesn't necessarily add up to what actual funds are. This is, at first I thought, I was looking at this with the brain set of, this is within our means. And then I started looking at the post projects on here, all 15 of them, and I realized that it far surpassed what our projected 2017 post budget or balance is. And so, just to make that clear.
It pretty well meets post.
Yes, definitely. So
You
within
wanna
that,
comment on that?
looking at the project form, it would be great to see on here with, let's say, for example, the Basalt Avenue underpass, is to break down, there's anticipated cost of $7.5 million and who's paying what. But then when we go into the town, or if there's any cash or debt assumptions, to have where that's actually coming from.
So, and I
that
think,
it's all cohesively in one spot.
yeah, so that's the one, where I put on their certificates of participation will be issued in March of 2017 to cover the town contribution, which if you look up above, the town's in it for nearly $3 million, and the timing of the CDOT. So technically, CDOT funding is close to $2.5 million. And as we move through those pay applications, if we have any, this last time, I think we had like 45 pieces of supporting documentation, and it's every piece of paper that has to be put on that project. If we get hung up somewhere and those monies aren't coming back fairly quickly, so that's the separate part of it is what you're talking about, and that's what I've been working with Bruce, is the cash flow.
Great.
So
that's exactly what I'm looking for, is to then continue the sentence at the rate of X amount of dollars from
Right.
post
Per year.
per year.
Per year.
And so the landscaping and the winter maintenance will be needed, but until we figure out, which we haven't drilled down on that exactly yet, we're not gonna know.
So Jen, the 650 that you're seeing, for the underpass there from 2017 to 2020, that's just the post contribution that was from that fund that's allocated. And it doesn't include necessarily a COP cost, right, Judy?
No, that is paying our COP
Okay.
back. But the problem is timing. So we're going to have to pay for this project, and it should be done August or September of this year. And I don't have, between CDOT 2.5 and the town, close to $3 million to pay for we're gonna have to pay for the project sooner than that. So that is, the $650,000 is going to be our debt service on the COPs that I do with whomever, we're gonna do a competitive sale on them.
So, before we get into like the weeds, this was a good introduction. I think everyone, we got it for the introduction, and we're gonna get it back for more, with more information. So if everyone's good, we can go on to the procurement policy. You good, Mark?
I'm good.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks a lot.
thanks.
So I figure it's Ron and Judy again.
I'm sorry, what?
Ron
Oh,
and
for
Judy again on the
procurement,
procurement policy.
I could start off the bat. The new procurement policy is something that was requested by the council, and we're pleased to have a near final draft here for your consideration. We think the new policy allows for more competition and therefore should lower cost to the community for procurement of the supplies, equipment, and capital items. It also provides, we believe, more management oversight and accountability of city, town staff. It does put more responsibility on department heads, and we feel that it takes out gray areas out of the current policies, and the process therefore is much more detailed. So it's very clear on how each type of procurement is to be handled. The policy does reflect to a large degree Aspen's procurement policy as a basis for ours, but ours has been modified and tailored to be Basalt specific for the needs that we've identified. So in a nutshell, that's our approach to the procurement policy, and I'll turn it to Judy for further comment.
Sorry, just making a note as you were talking. The only really thing that I would add is the importance of whatever we adopt, that we follow it. So there's, you know, whatever council wants, we'll adopt, but we need to be diligent about respecting it and following it, because I'm not sure that the breakdown of our prior one, the dollar amounts change, but we still have the responsibility that if it's not appropriated, it doesn't get spent. And I think that we have to be very diligent about that if we want our fund balances to be restored.
Would this, if we would've had this in place, would we had the problem with the rocks, would we have still had that problem?
I think that there's a pretty good chance we would not have had that dilemma. I think that without pointing any fingers at anyone, which wouldn't, I mean, there's no one to blame individually, but I think there was a certain laxity in the process because of the fact that we didn't have something like this to point to, or for the department heads to look at and say, okay, here's the procedure I need to follow. So this will, in my opinion, definitely improve that situation. Now, at the same time, and following up on what Judy is saying about following it, we have to follow it, because someone who bids and doesn't win, or someone who submits an RFQ or an RFP and doesn't win, they can hold our feet to the fire if we haven't followed the procedures. There's an appeal process in here. So we not only need to follow it because it's the right thing to do and for consistency and all that, but there are appeal procedures in here. It's intended to minimize council's involvement by a first step going to the town manager for an attempt to resolve any dispute. At the staff level, basically, then there's an opportunity, but if that's not the case, then there's an opportunity for appeal to the council. So this is something that can't be taken too lightly. And as Judy said, we do need to follow it. so that, so that we don't have problems. If we do, as Ron said, it's gonna be a much better procurement process that we have in town, because there's more accountability, there's more transparency, and more consistency if we do it this way.
So is this going into the municipal code now?
It's not, it doesn't need to be part of the code itself. It's an administrative policy if you adopt it. That's why if we're proposing that it would be approved by the council by resolution. And of course, this is a discussion at this stage. We can make changes all the way up to the last minute. And in fact, even after that, if there are things that turn out to be either misstated or impractical or unworkable, we can come back and make changes to it.
Mayor, there are a few revisions we made just recently. It was intended to be in the original draft, but we couldn't find it, so we sent out another provision, which is section 2.2, which basically gives local vendors and businesses preference in certain kind of procurement situations. Specifically, this provision would say that if a purchase is equal to or less than $50,000, there's a 5% leeway or preference for local businesses. If it's higher than that, we reduce the leeway to 3%, and this is a proposal. It's open for discussion, but we thought there was community interest in that.
You have an issue? Question?
You want to start discussing this? Or do you want, okay, well,
Are you good? Or do you have more?
There's only a couple other things. First page, which is table of contents, was slightly revised. And on page 12, there was a typo that should have contained the word, on the very first sentence, proposals shall not be opened so as to avoid disclosure of contents to competing offers during the process of negotiation. The word "not" was accidentally omitted.
Hold on, can I stop you there, Ron? Where is that page?
Page 12.
Well,
I think it's on the,
I think the "not" is wrong there,
okay.
in all due respect. This means, as written, proposals shall be opened so as to avoid disclosure of contents. Not be opened so as to avoid, kind of creates double negative, and I think is inconsistent with what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, well, my understanding we could work this out was just
We can,
before the
but-
deadline, you know,
Yeah.
so. And I sent out, or I passed around a matrix that has the spending thresholds that would be authorized and by either a department head. It does increase their ability to approve higher levels of expenditures, but there are accountabilities and responsibilities along with that. There's a threshold for town manager spending, and then above 15,000 per contract or purchase, it would require the town council's approval. So it's very specific. So with that, council members are free to ask questions.
okay. First of all, have we had a written comprehensive procurement policy before this?
That's why we got in trouble with the rocks.
Okay.
I think Judy can comment on this. We have some policies, but they're not very detailed, not very comprehensive, and this would suit.
Right, we have the expenditure authority, which identified, and that's what I've been using for audit purposes. It was everything over $1,000 that a department head took to town manager. And so the town manager could move money if it was general fund from one department to another. And that's more what it addressed rather than a bidding process.
What was the amount?
50,000. So if there was a line item that, say, we didn't purchase a vehicle, but we wanted to do something, you know, different with it, that the town manager could make that.
Okay. I would say, got a question on page 7. It lays out a bunch of policies. The town manager shall have authority and responsibility to promulgate policies on, and it gives you 6 different things. And I'd like to get from you, Ron, what would be a timeline you would expect that these policies would be laid out?
From the initial adoption of this?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, some rough timeline.
well, we would start implementing this upon council's approval, and if it seems that there's any part of it that's not as workable as we'd like, then we could bring back changes to the council at any time, because it is adopted by resolution, so
Yeah.
modifications are easy to do at pretty
Right.
much at any meeting.
But how many months do you think it would take to prepare policy on town-owned vehicles, purchase orders, et cetera?
Couple weeks, probably.
Okay, that's certainly plenty fast. The other question goes back to what Judy said about making sure we follow it. Is there any kind of audit of this process anticipated by the city to simply proactively audit randomly to see that these are being followed?
There are audits, and Judy can explain what the auditors look for.
Right, so the document that we had before is our expenditure authority, which we did in 2013. That's what I give to our auditors and say, these, so I'll just use Susan, for example. Her department's 1020 or 1047, and so anything that has a code of 1047 on it, it needs to have Susan's initials or signature on it. So I can't spend planning department, Susan can't spend admin money, and so that's the step 1. And part of it is internal control as well. And then the second part that we give our auditors is if, you know, because we're so small, there's only 2 people in finance, generally you'll see them audit about 25 to 30% of our accounts payable. We ask them to look at 75%. So if we change this document, we'll give it to our auditors and we'll say, this is what we adopted. And so starting with anything that was approved after that, they're gonna pull an invoice. We look at everything over $10,000. I have the auditors pull that. And again, part of it is internal control. We don't have a 3rd or 4th person in the finance department to do it. And so it's just good practice. And I can change that threshold to 15,000, but right now I have the auditors look at every check that we did that was over 10 grand.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to this local preference. I just want to make sure that it's either stated in here or in some other document related to this, that this does not, the local preference, the vendor must meet the requirements of the bid, that is, in terms of, you know, reliability, financial ability to meet the goals, you know, the standard, that this doesn't give them a preference in terms of our bid for
Right.
the work
Doesn't give
being
them any
done.
exemption from.
Doesn't give them any
Doesn't-
exemption.
Exactly,
Right.
so they have to comply with all the bid requirements, just
But
like
there's
anybody.
something more with this, is because in your procurement policy, you say, award shall be made to the responsible offerer whose proposal is determined in writing to be the most advantageous to the town, taking into consideration price and the evaluation factors, because you don't always go to the lowest bidder.
No.
We've got to be able to put this in that context, because just because this person's within 5%, if you didn't get the other factors of time, everything else, we've got to refer back to that, because right now it looks like if you're a local person and you're within 3% on a $7.5 million project, but you are not qualified to do this position, you get it.
Mayor, you're exactly right, it has to be the lowest responsive bidder.
Well, we can make it really clear by adding a sentence that says you have to meet all the other applicable requirements, even if you
Yeah,
submitted.
responsible doesn't have enough,
Well,
responsible doesn't,
okay,
if it's responsible bidder, I mean, it's the lowest responsible bidder, I was like, you gotta be clear in this, because we will be here, and there'll be, you know, a local person come up to us and say, you didn't pick me, I'm responsible.
We can,
Well,
we can
Tom will
fix that.
Okay, cool.
go wordsmith that, so.
You good with
I'd
that?
like to
Jen?
piggyback on Gary's statement there. He read my mind and he said it out loud first. I would, that it be, the bid is within 3%. The 5%, that's 5% difference.
3% on the,
Well,
under,
it's the 5% for 50 and below, so it's only $5,000.
So why is there a different, so that brings to the other question, why have a different,
Because if you have a
Percentage.
$7.5 million project, 5% is a
Right.
Huge.
Is a huge,
big number.
right,
enormous amount of money.
So that's the only difference.
3% is a lot of money too, and maybe when we bring it back, we can discuss that.
exactly. It's
Maybe
5%
we can
of
discuss
50.
that, like when they bring it back.
Okay, yeah. And then I have another question about, so who are the procurement, Ron, can you speak to this? Who are the procurement officials to be appointed? We can, we both,
We'll have to share.
we meet it right here in the middle, it doesn't need to. So who are the procurement officials to be appointed by the town manager? Our town staff is so small, how is there going to be a clear delineation between department heads and the procurement officials?
I'll let
There
Tom-
isn't,
Well,
but,
anyone who's authorized to purchase supplies, equipment, or professional services would be considered a procurement officer. Even, I understand from our town attorney, that includes the town council. Is that correct?
Well, the only, if you look at the definition, and then look at, section, let me get it. Let's start with procurement officer, that's on, if you go bottom right-hand corner, page 14 of 121. The only three, as the term is used, it means town council, town manager, or department head. For the respective authority of each one of the three, it is section 2.030, which starts on page 17 of 121 and goes over to the next page. And obviously the distinction, the authority of each is based on the amount of the procurement.
right, so that's what comes to my question here is, on page 12, section 3.040, small purchases,
Page,
section A,
is it 12 of 121?
It's
Uh,
3.0.
it's
Here,
page
one-
21 of 1221.
There are
or
two
page
sets of
12.
numbers on these.
3.0,
Right.
4.0.
At the packet.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Page 12 of the packet that we got.
Page
So-
12 of the
You could
packet.
show him.
I was, but he said he had it, he's right, printed.
This is a different 12. So which is it?
Why don't you just use mine, and then she's
Well,
reusing that.
they were using the one in the packet, so is it the packet number or the
This
middle
is-
of the page number?
This is the packet.
Middle of the page,
Middle of
number
the
12.
Page 12?
Yep.
I'm sorry, and then the question is?
The question is, on section A, small purchases, any procurement of less than $10,000 may be made by the procurement officer by negotiations without formal competition. And so,
So less than 10, it depends on, it would be the town manager unless it's less than 5, and then it's the department head.
Well, listen, any person who's able to purchase something in the town is a procurement officer, correct?
And at this
And
point,
they have to follow this
right,
thing. So,
Yes, sir.
to me, that's what I took from this. It was really clear that any person who can purchase, yeah, the department head or anything else, can purchase, you've gotta follow this. You can do 0 to $49.99,
right.
but it has to be a budget appropriation,
Yes, sir.
okay? Does that work?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that,
Thank
you.
make sure that,
And so
Because there are a
that's-
lot of
there's
different things.
a lot of different, yeah,
There's a lot of different
That is the list
terms.
that the auditors go off of.
uh-huh,
So we
Okay.
get, they have a sample signature of Susan and then a sample of her initials and every department head, and that's what they're gonna compare. So if I have an invoice, they're gonna look at the dollar amount, what department it was out of, and whether or not that person was authorized to do that.
and it's excellent, a wonderful, wonderful step.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Otherwise, it's a great first step. I like it. So, thank you. And we can, anything else you guys wanted to add? Or we could break for dinner and then come back at 6 o'clock for the meeting. Thanks. No. I did.
He's
too.
going.
We're ready.
Yes. Oh.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, am I ready? I'm ready.
If you guys, it's not every day we have the entire police department at our meeting, so don't get out of line. Hi, I'm Gary Tenenbaum. I'm your mayor for the evening, and welcome to Basalt Town Council. We'll get going about 6:04. And I want to thank Grassroots for recording and broadcasting our town meetings. And tomorrow's mayor's coffee is actually, I'm going to cancel it for Jackie because she's sick tonight, and I doubt she's going to feel great at 8 o'clock the next morning. So we'll give her the morning off, and she'll be back at it next week. So I just want to start off quickly with Happy New Year to everyone. And since I get to be mayor for the night, I just wanted to put a quick word out to the public and everybody else that it's a new year. It's 2017. You know, I'm really hoping that 2017 we can really have a year of empathy and respect. You know, 2016 was tough. It was yes, I agree. It was a tough year, and you know, I really want to thank our town staff first and foremost, and it's great I get to thank the entire police department. It was, you know, there was a lot of town stuff going on. The community was definitely, you know, up in arms at council, and I think it got to a point where, you know, the election happened, it's over, 2017's here, it's time for people to respect each other. We're one community, we're a small community. I really love living in Basalt, and I really, really love the people in Basalt, and hopefully we can have a really good dialogue in 2017. Keep it going, I love it. So that's my thing for respect and empathy in 2017, and on that, I'll give it to Pam for roll call.
Okay. Bernie Grauer.
Here.
Katie Schwer.
Here.
Jackie Whitsitt, absent. Jennifer Riffle.
Here.
Auden Chandler is absent. Mark Kittle.
Here.
And Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Well, now this is really fun. So this is a special presentation by Chief John Camper of Grand Junction. And I'm going to give it up to Chief Camper to come up and make this incredible presentation. You guys all can come up.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. As was said, my name is John Camper. I'm currently the Chief of Police in Grand Junction, but I'm here tonight on behalf of two organizations, the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police and the Colorado Sheriffs, County Sheriffs of Colorado. And I also serve as the Southwest representative for the Chiefs Association. This is fun for us, and it means a lot to us to be able to present these. My purpose tonight is to present your chief, Greg Knott, with a certificate and a plaque from the Police Chiefs and County Sheriffs Associations, which has found that the Basalt Police Department has met or exceeded the state standards for accreditation. There's 239 law enforcement agencies in Colorado. We currently have 40 of them accredited. So this means that only 17% of the agencies in Colorado are accredited. That's because it's not an easy process. It involves a lot of work and a lot of commitment on the part of the department. Let me tell you a little bit about that. In order to become an accredited law enforcement agency, the Basalt Police Department had to meet some 213 established professional standards, which were verified then by an on-site assessment by 3 law enforcement officials from other jurisdictions. The standards include things like ethics, organization, crime prevention, operations, and many others that were verified with that on-site assessment. And as I said, the Basalt Police Department met or exceeded every one of those standards. This is considered, by the way, to be so important that if the Basalt PD happens to be a CIRSA agency, this accreditation will actually give your community bonus points with CIRSA, which may in fact reduce insurance costs. So there's some meat to this. You can be very proud of your police department and its employees. Chief Knott and his staff are obviously committed to providing quality law enforcement services to your community. So on behalf of CACP and the Sheriffs of Colorado, it is my absolute pleasure to present to Chief Greg Knott and the Basalt Police Department this accreditation plaque. It is well-earned and well-deserved. So.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Accreditation, it is a difficult process. It's a time-consuming process, and all of our staff assisted with it. This is where the credit goes. And some of you probably don't know some of our staff, so if I can take the opportunity to introduce everybody, so we can do it. So down on the end is Aaron Munch. He's a sergeant. Travis Newcomb, officer. Brian Limke, our school resource officer. Ernie Mack, and he is our evidence custodian who had the most work to do out of this entire accreditation. He tore it up. Good job. Nino Santiago. Jason Hedberg, officer. Kurt Donaldson. And the one that keeps the department running is Dina Prieto, our administrator. So we're missing two tonight. Thomas Wright is in training. He's our community resource officer, and Joe Gasper had a family emergency, and he's not able to make it our sergeant. So we're missing two. We tried. Thank you to Chief Camper for coming.
It was an honor.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
One of our citizens, Gino Rossetti, is, really thankful for the work that you guys do along Riverside Drive. And it's not much, but he said he wants to give it to you to disperse to all the officers. So, it gets noticed. You guys, what you do gets noticed in this community. It was great this morning. I got to see Aaron on the way to my bus, and it's just you guys get noticed. You guys do a great job, and it's a little thing from Gino, but thank you.
Thank you. It's very nice.
So we're leaving the meeting and going and having a potluck.
Yeah.
So have a good night. Thank you for having us. Oh, wait, Judy wants to say.
I want to say one thing, and I would like to acknowledge the family members that are sitting in there, because I do know how very special these gentlemen are, and I've worked beside them for a while, and I think we're really, really fortunate to have you guys, and I know that the people that worry about it the most are the ones that are sitting out here, so thank you guys for allowing them to be with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. See, that was almost as fun as Student of the Month. That was actually the Adults of the Month.
Yeah.
Good, I feel good. I'm happy. Great. I don't know. I think it's time. I think that's what humans do best, is they get together and do this. And so, it's great. Hey, Bruce, you're not allowed to talk. Cool, well, the next thing is our consent agenda, and all we've got on it is the minutes from December 13th, 2016.
Mayor, I move that the council approve the consent agenda as published.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. All right, now we're going to do council comments. reports, disclosures, and we're also going to get a report from the town attorney. Any council members have a comment?
Yeah, I've got a comment on what we got advised of a possible lawsuit by Mike Scanlon at the city. And he apparently felt that I in some way denigrated him by some of my comments. Certainly did not mean to denigrate him, but my duty as a counselor is to discuss thoroughly and oversee the town finances and communicate clearly and publicly when I have concerns about those, how they are managed, and when the council has to take abrupt and drastic action like we did this past year in adopting an austerity budget, which really curtailed a lot of desirable and valuable services. So there was a big turnabout with that. And he says he did let us know that reserves were being drawn down to achieve major goals, the park and the underpass. And that is correct. He did in his 5-year forecast. But what he doesn't say is what's also public record is that several councilors, particularly fall of last year and through the rest of 15, expressed more and more concern about the rate of drawdown of our cash reserves in our general fund, which is what we use to operate the city, turn on the lights, pay the payroll, fix the streets, and so on, and that we were well below our policy to keep a 33% reserve. He didn't acknowledge that, but that was public. That's a fact. It's also a fact that I've been asking for something called a capital improvement plan, and we just received our first capital improvement plan, to my knowledge, that the city has ever had, and Ron, our interim manager, said this will allow, and this is the CIP plan, will allow the town council to make informed decisions regarding the allocation of resources and whether any debt should be incurred to finance a particular, a particular project. And this is what I felt we had been needing, and particularly as we went into, in the summer, looking at putting a debt issue for the park on the ballot, that we needed to know where we stood in meeting our bread and butter goals to keep the city running and functioning, and how that might impact it. I will say our municipal finance consultant mentioned Bruce Kimmel in the summer in a July meeting that several councilors were very concerned at the ongoing decrease in our fund balances, our cash reserves, and were concerned that we did not have a capital improvement plan in place to look at this bond issue in context of a significant financial decision. So I'm not saying that he did not start out with a plan of this financial 5-year forecast, which acknowledged this, but that as it kept going, this decrease, this drain on our funds, and we made more concerted concerns known to him, he did not revise this 5-year financial plan. It was done in October of 15, and did not bring to us a plan to assess this change in activity that was very concerning. He made some forecasts in this plan that we would get the $2.5 million back from the RFCDC as our investment in that parcel, and that was based on assumptions that were not guaranteed. There is no contract, and by the time he did this forecast, we already knew from reporting and analysis by Bruce Kimmel that there were 3 likely scenarios that could be approved. One was 75,000 square feet of space, the other was 35, and the last one was 5,000. And these scenarios followed the P&Z and the council's adoption of that was the realistic amount of developable space. And I'll quote the Kimmel report of November 10th, 15. As I noted at the October 27th, 15 Town Council meeting, Eller's analysis yielded two universal results. First, no redevelopment scenario is likely to recoup the full $2.5 million of town reimbursable costs of investment to date. The 75,000 would recoup $1.5 million, and I believe the 35,000 was $1 million. Again, well below what was shown here. He also showed a projection of no recouping of the money, which was very alarming to council because it showed us completely getting rid of all of our excess and going into the hole within a matter of a few years. And I just want to say and acknowledge that what he said was correct about warning us in this report. My question and my response to the public is that he did not respond to our concerns for a capital improvement plan, because we just finally got one, and our concern about this rapid loss of our cash balance. And that is when and why the council had to take the drastic action of an austerity budget.
Anyone else? Jen?
I look forward in the near future to the council and staff providing what our current committees are. So that includes planning and zoning and post and Basalt public arts, and there's so many committees. And for all of you citizens out there that are interested in being involved, putting your passion out there, you're showing up, please consider joining one of our boards. And in the very near future, we should have a clear understanding of what seats are to be, are available. And we would love your involvement, and that's a personal invitation as well. So thanks for starting to get excited about considering being on one of our committees.
Excuse me? Yes. Okay, on the Finance Committee, is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, we talked about,
Yes,
we're not
okay.
having a meeting this month.
Yes, the Finance Committee will not meet this month, tomorrow, but we are anticipating and have requested a meeting for either February or March to revise this 5-year financial forecast that Mike put together in November, because in many significant ways, the finances of the city have changed. And I have particularly asked that we use the Kimmel analysis and look at reimbursements at 75,000 and 35,000, how that would impact our budget. The old one that Mike made up assumed that we would get 1.25 million in 2017, 2018, and that clearly was not likely to happen even when his report and his forecast was made up. And we have some positive things. We have just many changes, and we're going to meet and discuss what are the assumptions that we are going to put into our new 5-year financial forecast. So please feel free to attend. And at that point, the staff will then take our agreed upon assumptions and produce a new 5-year financial forecast, which is kind of it's like a roadmap. It's not a budget, but it's a roadmap going forward of what we expect reasonably our finances to be. And I would say this, I am very pleased by staff, and particularly Ron's tremendous responsiveness. I think we asked him 2 months ago for a capital improvement plan, which is our first ever, and is something that, as Ron mentioned, the International Association of City Managers considers a best practice to have in place. We haven't had that till now. We also have, for the first time, a written, fully articulated procurement policy that we're working on, and now we'll have a 5-year revised and much more accurate forecast of our future. So I see us making tremendous progress in professionalizing our financial management of the city under Ron's experienced hand. Thank you, Ron,
Thank you.
and the staff.
Thank you. On behalf of the staff.
So, Tom? your report.
Yes, I was asked to provide a brief summary of the decision render that we received today, January 10, from Eagle County District Court. Is this,
Just to you.
am I making it onto the?
Now you are.
Now I am, okay. Eagle County District Court issued a decision today in Guy v. Witsit, which is a open meetings law and Open Records Act case. Lead counsel on this case was Steve Dawes, and I'm not, I don't want to steal Steve's thunder, but since Steve couldn't be here tonight, I am going to provide a brief summary of what the judge decided. The decision is in written form. It's a public document. It's 25 pages. Anyone can get a copy from me or through Town Hall if you choose. In any event, just to hit some highlights and pretty much stick to just what the judge said. There were two primary issues that the court was considering. First, whether or not recordings of four executive sessions should be made public, and based on claims that the notice of the meetings was improper and inadequate. Second, the plaintiff sought a determination that the town did not do an adequate job searching for electronic communications among town council members, and that therefore the response to the Open Records Act request was inadequate. The court found that the executive sessions were not held for any improper purpose based on its in-camera review of those executive session tapes that were available, and that the town did not take any formal action in the executive sessions that would violate the open meetings law. The court found that the town acted in good faith in attempting to comply with both statutes. The court found that there was sufficient detail in the announced purpose of executive sessions which were convened for the purpose of privileged attorney-client communications. It found that discussions of personnel issues with Mike Scanlon in executive sessions was proper, and the notice of those meetings was proper, particularly in view of Mike Scanlon's excuse me, privacy rights. The court did find that a portion of the executive session conducted on April 26th of last year for the purpose of discussing potential property acquisition and determining negotiating position should have been identified with more specificity, and that since it was not that portion of the executive session, record must be disclosed. In all other respects, the action of the town was affirmed. The court found that the town was not conducting secret meetings or acting improperly in any way in executive sessions. With respect to electronic communications, the court found that the town made all reasonable and adequate efforts to locate and produce all of the requested records, and that it produced all records that were responsive to the request. And finally, the court found that there was no violation of any records retention requirements in the face of allegations that certain text messages were deleted based on the fact that the text messages at issue were deemed to be transitory in nature, such that there was no town business of any significance discussed, and there was no requirement to retain them. So that's the brief summary of the case. If the council wants to discuss it further at another meeting, or if we need to huddle for attorney-client communications, we can do that, but at this point, I don't see any reason for either. There is, the plaintiff has a right to attorney's fees with respect to the one, it's his prevailing on the one claim for the executive session tape regarding property acquisition, and the court will consider a motion for award of fees based on that issue alone. And that's where the case stands.
Do you have any idea what that might be?
I can't say at this point.
Ron, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to citizen comments for items not on the agendas, or items added to the agenda after the deadline. And, you know, we instituted last year a public meeting procedure. I'm hoping that you guys all listened to the respect and empathy thing I said at the beginning. You know, we're really trying to set a new tone for 2017, so, you know, for public comments, just, you gotta come up, because you gotta be on grassroots. If you wanna come up, state your name, and then give your comment, so, Jeff?
Sure.
You guys can all come up together, you're more than welcome.
Hi. For the record, I am Jenna Moe. I am the Executive Director of the Art Base.
I'm John Black. I'm a board member of the Art Base.
Great. I want to start by thanking you all for your support in 2016, for paying the rent for our annex space, and for the free rent in our Lions Park building. Thank you for making that possible. I have a little sheet to pass around that is estimated money spent in the downtown core based on the amount of people who attended our second Friday openings and art talks. So we are here tonight because we had hoped to be on the council agenda and got moved to a to be determined later date. And the goal of our public comment tonight is to express our great interest in being put back on the council agenda for a soon-to-be-determined time. And at that council meeting, we would like to discuss the availability, opportunity, and options for operational support from the town for the art base. We understand and respect that you just came through budgeting season, as did we. We approved our budget last night for 2017, and we would like to better understand exactly the expectations for making formal requests to the budget. We presented to council on October 25th, but I want to make sure that going forward, if the next opportunity is in June or before, that we make sure that all procedures are followed. And we also want to bring to light our concern about arts funding in general for the town of Basalt. We are close with the Basalt Public Arts Commission, and they're our friends. We support the idea of public arts in Basalt. Our understanding is that, and we hope to gain further understanding, but that because the underpass is exempt from the 1% of capital improvement projects for the arts, that BPAC is finding funding through the Sopris Meadows RITA. And the truth for the art base is we've had an amazing year. We exceeded the budgeted income by 16%. So we met budget, and we have really gained momentum and raised the profile of the organization. We've increased the board by 50%. It's all program numbers and participation numbers are up. Yet the truth is that we still operate month by month in terms of cash balance after losing the patron donor Wiley money and having a period of transition between directors. We're still trying to secure our financial stability for the future. We hope to build an endowment campaign that's attached to a potential new building, which we understand is in waiting as we figure out the plans for the downtown core. So long story short, we have concerns about the public reach of a temporary 2-year public sculpture versus the reach of arts programming provided by the art base for our kids in the schools, for our seniors, for adults, for citizens with any sort of disability that puts them at risk. So our goal is to get put back on the agenda to better understand arts funding in Basalt and make sure that we are, as a community, focused on our spending and spending in the right places that make the biggest difference at this time. So, yeah, we're committed to Basalt. We're thankful to be here and thankful for your support, and we're hopeful for a vibrant new year. And we already miss our presence on Midland Avenue. We're still on Midland Spur, and we're exploring all possibilities to figure out where our presence can continue in a bright and colorful way. Thank you.
And the only thing I'd like to add is, first off, thank all the council members for your time. I've sat through a few River Park meetings, and God bless you for hanging in there. You know, with the River Park, there's obviously a lot of a very divided camp, but it seemed like both sides of that camp want that to be kind of in increased vitalities downtown, to Old Town Basalt. Different ideas of how that's going to occur, but that still seems to be a common goal. This art organization, the Art Base, is actually doing that now. I mean, the amount of people that come and visit our openings, the amount of people that take classes, the amount of students that show up. This, I would argue, is the best bang for your buck as far as increasing vitality in downtown Basalt. I think you get, when you look at the comparison in costs between the two, I think this one is one that actually is the only functioning art organization right now. It's over 20 years in existence. It brings people to Old Town, and it's not in the future, it's in the present. One thing that has been talked about over the last few years is a lease for our building so that we know that we have a home. This helps us enormously in fundraising, and it gives us a security that our purpose is acknowledged and ongoing. So I think, you know, I was pleased to see Auden mention in the paper that he saw RMI, the River Conservancy, and Art Base is the foundation of kind of bringing vitality, the arts and nonprofits to Old Town. And we just kind of want to get the council on the same page as us as far in terms of support and feeling like we can move forward as partners with the town, because the majority of our fundraising we do through the community. The majority of the artists are local artists, and this is truly a community art organization that I think fits perfectly with the goals of the council.
I did forget to make one point also, which is that we as a board have a fiduciary responsibility to explore all funding opportunities, and it's critical to us to be able to secure annual support from the town of Basalt, as it shows a positive commitment to our donors that the town's vested in what we do, and it has a waterfall effect in how we secure funding from other municipalities, from the state, and grants, is to be able to show the town's support. So it's, we look forward to an opportunity to discuss further, and I want to thank you all individually also for those of you that have memberships to the Art Base and attend our openings and events. And this Friday, Burnham Art will be opening at the Art Base next door from 5 to 7 p.m. with an art talk at 5:30.
Great, well,
Yeah,
thank
and-
you. And, you know, the question is, you know, you don't have to do it now, Ron, but just to give us an update at the next meeting on agenda time and all of this, so we can just be aware.
Sure.
Okay.
I did email out a memo from our executive committee that I have a copy of that I can pass around as well. That was sent last week.
Did everyone get that?
Did everyone get it? Okay,
I got it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period at 6:40. And the next item up is 7A, to approve the Arts Consulting Group ACG as the consultant to complete the feasibility study for the Arts Campus at Willits and authorize the contract. Susan?
Okay, we have, today with us, we have Bruce Kimmel, who, provided a lot of the information that's in your packet, and we have Ryan Honey, the managing director for TACA, is also in the back of the room, so I don't know, Ryan, if you wanted to come up. But, I think everybody knows that we had quite a discussion about how to have a pathway, a framework for how we evaluate the feasibility of the Arts Center at Willits Town Center. And we passed Resolution 41, 2016 last year, and it set out that we were going to have an independent financial analysis of the cause program. And Bruce Kimmel has been kind of managing that process. He sent out a request for proposals, received 3 proposals, one from Arts Consulting Group, ACG, one from AMS, Planning and Research. The first is ACG, and the second one is AMS, and the third was Hunden Strategic Partners, HSP. And the one that's recommended from Bruce Kimmel and staff is the proposal from ACG. It had a proposed fee of $19,190. The high proposal had a response of $45,000 to $65,000. Bruce Kimmel also put a memo in your packet kind of explaining the reasons that he was recommending that ACG be funded. One of them was the fact that they do have a more local presence. They have one core member that is in Denver, and he felt that they responded the best to what our needs were without responding to items that we didn't request in the proposal. Is there anything else, Bruce, that you want to add? So we have a motion that is authorizing us to accept their proposal and authorizes the contract using a standard contract form that we use, subject to approval by the town attorney. The funds are from the Willits RETA. In this particular RETA, the funds have to be used for an arts or cultural center on this one particular piece of property in Willits Town Center.
Is Ryan or Bruce, you want to add anything? Questions? I have one question. It's really for Bruce, and you said in your memo the work sample was, study subject is quite different, but you're confident. Could you just explain that?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor and council members. What I was referring to is I felt that the analysis that ACG did on the Colony Theater Company in Burbank, California, it's a different scope of work and a different situation that they are analyzing versus what they would be analyzing with TACA. But the thought process and the level of detail and the analysis that came out of that seemed to reflect the exact type of expertise and knowledge that we're looking to leverage in this situation. So it's not to say, gee, we're going to see something exactly like this, because it was a different set of circumstances, but I was impressed by that work product and the level of detail that was in it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm just curious, is TACA putting any money into this at all? Is it coming out of the money that we appropriated for them, or?
It's
Yes.
the town of Basalt's paying for it.
Out of the RETA.
Out of the RETA.
I'm not big on consultants. I mean, you spend all this money and you're still basically in the same spot. So I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just jump in and clarify, this study is really something that was meant to give the town council more confidence and a second independent look at TACA's work plan and all the analysis that they've done. We aren't arts experts at Ellers, and so we were very clear that we thought it would be appropriate, to the extent the town wanted this type of independent analysis before you entered into a lease agreement, to have someone has in the trenches experience with arts, performing arts organizations, take a really close look at their development plan, their fundraising plan, their operations plan, including the programming that they expect to do, and give you that third-party perspective on it. So just that's where this is really coming from.
If it was a developer with a proposal on a traffic study or something, they would be paying the fee. Wouldn't be the town.
True. I guess what I would say is, this TACA partnership is really a unique circumstance for the town in being a public nonprofit partnership. And so I think that's really how this isn't as comparable to another type of private development project.
Well, since I've been involved in discussions with them, for quite a while now, give you my take on it, Mark, and maybe add some information, might change your mind a little. But, this is a group, these are the citizens who have self-identified themselves and are willing to put in the time and effort to realize a vision at Willits of a multi-use arts center to increase the overall vitality of the whole community. We set up a RETA with Willits, and we encumbered it specifically for the use of arts, not to be a community center, but pretty much anything else arts. And we also identified a piece of land as part of the Willits approval, about 3/4 of an acre, now worth, as I recall, about $2.25 million. And the idea of all of that was that the town was going to help jumpstart a citizen group to realize this goal of vitality, of a place where things happen, Basalt, and that it was only to be, a starting fund. It's a lot of money, but they would have to come up with a plan for a facility and a plan for programming and show us that they could get the money to build the facility and they could get the money to run the programming and still stay in business for several years. And we have given them a substantial investment, $240,000, the citizen group, and to get there. And they have come up with a plan. They hired a marketing consultant, JVA, that did a study. They have some architectural plans, and I made it very clear, I was, as a member of the Finance Committee, not comfortable signing a lease, and there's another $800,000 in RETA cash money, which they would like us to, dedicate to their nonprofit. Now, we don't have to. The RETA does not state that we have to fund any specific nonprofit. It's simply an organization that is going to produce a facility like this for the arts, and I just made my concern clear that I'm not an expert in financing the arts by any means, and I looked at their marketing report. I frankly thought it was long on internet research and a bit short on local research. But I got very comfortable with Ryan as an experienced leader in the arts and fundraiser, that he knows what he's doing. He's been doing it a while, and he's, I developed a regard for him that he has the ability, the leadership ability for this group. All said, I need an outside expert like these people to come in and verify to a high degree of likelihood, because I am not going to do what we did with the $2.5 million going into Fix the Fork, where two organizations, well-meaning, good people, they don't have a solid business plan, there's no really structural integration, there's no contract. It has to be done very business-like. This, for us to allocate, even though it's already there, we are still responsible for the proper designation of these funds, and it's got to succeed. We don't want it to get off the ground and just falter. And that is why I asked for, and I think the Finance Committee agreed, that we wanted this study and that we would be willing to pay the cost of the study out of the existing RETA funds, separate for what we've already got going to get them started. That's why it's here before you.
Where did the 240,000 go?
Came from the RETA funds, and it went into operations. Mr. Ryan's salary, he's an experienced art executive, he doesn't work for free, and various other expenses. If you will remember, we had a very detailed analysis of the financial reports that we were getting in the beginning, and we and our CFO were not entirely satisfied. We made our concerns known. We met with them and their new CPA. I think we got everything ironed out, and I'll just ask Judy right now, are you satisfied that you are getting the financial reporting you need and want?
Correct. I mean, we haven't had anything for 17s, but if we continue on the path, we needed to do a little bit of path correction last year, and I think we were on the right path. We haven't done anything since budget discussions, but as long as we move forward in the right manner, we worked with their CPA and Ryan to make sure we had the documentation.
Yes, so the money has been spent in accordance. We had an agreement with them, now we have a resolution that we passed authorizing this and that expenditure of that $240,000, and we have the accounting that is approved back.
Anyone? Jeff? Katie?
To expand on what Bernie has to say and to your point, being in this process since the summer when the TACAW kind of seemed to come up, it seems like this is a necessary step that we need to take to determine whether we should continue spending RETA funds on this particular project, and if this is the right project that will work in the valley. So I feel that this is a necessary step. I completely agree with your point about the town paying for this. We've agreed in that Resolution 41 to do it, but as we've discussed, the town enjoys and the community enjoys partnerships that are public and private and nonprofit in this instance. But typically in a partnership, there's cost sharing. So in this particular instance, there's no cost sharing, and we will be paying for it 100% out of the RETA, which at this point, I'm exhausted about banging my head against the wall about how I feel that the RETA should be used, and that I don't feel that the RETA should be used to pay for salary and other soft costs such as that, when the RETA explicitly states that it is for building, I don't have the language in front of me, but it is to build a facility and to create an endowment for the facility. So that's where I'm at. I will support this because I feel it is a necessary step moving forward.
Okay, based on the Finance Committee voting unanimously, I'll probably go ahead and vote yes.
But I want to clarify something. They're looking at, I don't know, $5-7 million facility. We're giving this startup money. They have to raise all the money to build the thing, and they have to have a financial plan that keeps them in the black. And that is what this study is supposed to tell us. If, in fact, the plan that they have now, and I'll talk more about this later after other people talk, the specific plan of how to analyze what they've got, I do support it. That's all I want to say for it.
I likewise was going to make a similar statement to Katie, and I wanted to follow up with Ron. I sent an email to you yesterday, so that was a very short time ago. But can you please remind us what our budgetary commitments are in 2017 to TACA? And is there any sort of allocation consent that needs to come to council to release funds such as this specifically to TACA?
I'd like to refer that to the finance director who has more current information.
So during your budget process, we did approve money inside, and it was under the restricted money. I keep looking at your head, but those papers aren't there anymore. And we did directly speak to the parking and this study, that they were separate from the funds that would be going to TACA this year, to complete those two studies before we moved forward.
Okay, and within that, further, the next step, how, besides the studies, looking at other financial commitments to TACA, what are our budgetary commitments for salary, et cetera? Are we committed to Mr. Honey's salary from January 1st, or excuse me, January 1st through December 31st, or does it stop in May?
I think it's, I'll reserve the right to, double check it with the resolution, but
It's in
how
the
the
resolution.
the resolution's really setting it out that the town council is gonna make this decision of is it feasible or not? And it this resolution takes you through that time period. So it's not an open-ended, we're gonna pay Mr. Honey's salary forever. It is, the town council has to get this report, weigh it with the parking study and everything else, and then make a determination about how it wants to proceed.
I think, Jen, we didn't have enough information to do a year-long allocation at that time.
Okay, so that's just some of the background information that I wanted to have clear for all of us to be educated going forward in why we came to this point of considering that this study is necessary. But it's also necessary for all of us to understand what the other financial investments are, including, as Bernie mentioned, the $240,000.
Any other questions? Or, Ryan, what'd you do to your hand?
Ski.
Oh. Is there a motion?
Oh, are we not going to discuss I would like to say a few words then,
Okay.
before we get, a few more.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just want the public to understand that this study is not to come up with a different scenario or a new scenario. The TACA board has done their homework and has spent a lot of time, and they've come up with these plans, and they believe are feasible, and that we are hiring this consultant to look at what they propose. They've got some data. Ryan's done a lot of work, this JVA study. Is that enough information, what they have? Is that adequate for us to make a decision on? Do they have enough market research? It will point out areas where we might wish to pursue and ask for more information from either TACA or the consultant. And I believe that that's very important because I don't have enough I don't know enough about arts financing to know, but these people do. And they won't, they will come back, and I hope give us a pretty straightforward answer based on what are the probabilities of this particular plan succeeding. And we have a big decision, which we've said we would like to make by May, because there's all that town money on the line. With TACA, there is a challenge that the Art Base and RMI and the Conservancy don't face, in that they're brand new. They have no track record, really, of fundraising. They just started their nonprofit, got their nonprofit last year, and so that will be an issue that I can see already. They've set out basic things. I can see already, I want this group to meet with the would-be donors and funders and get a professional evaluation of their likelihood to come through with the funds. And I think there are other things in addition. This is the low bid at 19,000. I would have no problem asking for more services from this consultant to the point where we could get to a clear decision. Does this proposal have a high likelihood of success? Because, you know, once you sign the lease, it's pretty much out of our control then on this.
I would hope this first study would define that. No?
I don't know that no, they don't include that as one of their services. It will look at a lot of things, and it will identify areas that the information they got from TACA was not enough for them, I guess, to make. Am I interpreting that right, Bruce?
Councilmember Grauer, yes, if there are gaps that they feel need to be addressed, like you said, with more information from TACA or from other sources or interviews, they would identify those. They will be on site at least once, if not twice, per their scope of work, and I expect those conversations that they would have with TACA staff, the TACA board, and other stakeholders would provide some of that local context that you're looking for.
And within that, it's mentioned as well that there will be town representatives that will be involved as well in the interview process. And I'd like to put forth, if we do go forward, that I would like to be included as a town key stakeholder with the meeting with Mr. Grotzman and Mrs. Harris.
Yeah, that I think would be great, and I think definitely one of us from the Finance Committee will definitely be at every meeting with the consultant when they're there. I hope it succeeds. It's a great opportunity. Now, we've had an example with the Roaring Fork Club where they put forth an ambitious plan, and then we've asked them for their funding, and I think before that even happened. So we're putting every group now where we're giving significant support through the similar levels of financial analysis, okay? We're not interested in doing another, you know, you're good guys, we're good at guys, here's a handshake, let's invest the money and hope something good happens. So I think this is the right approach. As I said, I expect to be spending more money than this first $19,000 until we are satisfied that, you know, we have a good feeling about coming to a decision.
If I could just add really briefly, I'm excited to work with whatever party you choose to share with you the work that I've done with my board to put forward our business plan. And I believe confidently and firmly that it's a sound plan, that it will work, and know that it will add value for this community. But it's really important to me that you all share in that confidence and belief. So I look forward to this process with whomever you select.
Now, is there a motion?
I move that we approve this contract with, as proposed by staff.
For a second?
I'll second it, just.
Yeah, further discussion? Anyone? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? Anyone against? Nope. Cool, passed, thank you. Thanks. Okay, we're on the next item. The Rudai Water and Power Authority requests to increase funding for aquatic nuisance species inspection program. And it's Mark Kittle.
They asked for this back in October from, I believe it was Carbondale, Basalt, Pitkin County, Aspen, Snowmass, but the crux of the whole thing is they'd like to extend the inspection program at Rudai at the boat ramp, because there's some holes in it right now that they could slip boats in there without anybody inspecting. And right now, Rudai is one of the cleanest reservoirs in the state, and it's $15,000, and it would be an annual budgetary item. And the other jurisdictions have all agreed to put it in. I told Mark Fuller I would bring it before you guys to talk about. And I'm not sure, Judy, if it's if we've got room in the general fund, or?
Well, the 14 that you're speaking of, the first, it's close to
And-
15, but,
yeah.
right. So the first half of it was during, that was our regular RUDI allocation, it's in the budget. So the number you guys are talking about tonight is 10 grand, is additional funding for, and then there was talk of whether it's 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days up there that they're gonna do those inspections, so.
Seven's what they're shooting for. And it would go from, instead of Memorial Day to Labor Day, it would go to May 1st to, I believe, November 1st. And, you know, it's a pretty good amenity for us, RUDI is.
So you're recommending we do this?
I am, yes.
Anybody have questions?
So just to go back to Mark's question, asking where would this come out of? Where do we find 10,000?
We can, take it out of our consulting fees. It's the way we start 2017, and it just means we are having tougher discussions sooner. And that's something that we talked about during the budget process, so.
Mark, do you know if there's any other possible sources for funding? I mean, it seems like Mark Fuller's reached out to a lot of different
Well,
entities, but are there any more that could chip in?
Well, it's because we lost the funding from Parks and Wildlife. That's where the shortfall's coming from. You know, I would be willing to say if we give maybe 7,500, I would hope that we'd give them something. It's a little late in the game to be asking for 10, but how much is there allotted in the discretionary fund? Was there over 100,000 there?
For the council discretionary funds, no, we, put that back, I believe it's 20 without having a budget in front of me, but we ratcheted that way back.
Okay. Well, it's totally up to you guys, and I just thought it was for a good cause.
Well, and I'll chip in on, the quagga mussel zebra mussels are a major, major issue. And I'm really kind of upset that Colorado Parks and Wildlife is not funding this, and I think we need to bring that up to Colorado Parks and Wildlife on a larger scale, because it should not be the towns having to figure this out. It should be, the state trying to keep these endangered, noxious species out of there. But I don't wanna let it go, and I wanna make sure that we're doing this. This is a big deal for RUDI. Keeping RUDI away from quagga mussels and zebra mussels is critical, because once you get them in there, they do so much damage to all the intakes in the dam and everything else. It then could potentially, compromise being able to do releases and all these other things that we need to do for habitat and stuff. So to me, I'd be happy to do Mark's compromise and say $7,500 and see what else we can find. I know Healthy Rivers and Streams, I saw some of them back there, but we can ask them if they're putting money towards this, because this is a perfect use of that money. It's in
I'm
Pickton
pretty sure
County.
they have, not that large of an amount, but I think they did donate some money.
Okay.
So being part of the discretionary fund committee, I do recall that we left 1,500, or was it lower? It was $500?
Yeah, it was a pretty small amount. I can get that and email all of you tomorrow, and maybe we do, as Jen is suggesting, we find money from more than one source.
Right. So
So let me work on that, and I'll send you guys an email tomorrow if you give me a dollar amount I'm shooting for.
Let's go 7,500.
Well,
I'm closer to 5.
I'm always, there are so many good causes. We have a balanced budget. We're gonna be taking out of our consultants' fees, which assume it's nothing to do with what we just talked about. That's a whole different funding source there. The thing that makes me willing to go with the 7,500 is that this is an economic generator for Basalt, and clearly having a clean, desirable lake up there and the fishery I'm concerned about, that I can see why it's needed.
You have enough direction, or do you want,
Do we need a
do
motion?
you need a motion?
Not until you have the, I'll get
Okay.
it ready to go and then we'll approve it.
Thank you.
Great. Next up, Vitality Zone, Basalt Center Circle, providing council direction to staff regarding whether the council would like staff to study and bring forward code amendments to the C2 district to remove Basalt Center Circle from the Vitality Zone requirements. And finally, you get up, James.
I'm here, yes. This is an item that staff is seeking council direction on. We have Miss Peggy Austin here this evening to talk to the council. She is with Winfield Management, who owns a building on Basalt Center Circle. It's the building that used to have the kitchen store. I think pretty much everybody's familiar with where that was. She would like to remove the area of Basalt Center Circle from the Vitality Zone. She began correspondence with former manager Mike Scanlon late in the summer, and upon Mike's departure, the planning staff had further discussions with Peggy. As background, the Vitality Zone was established in 2009 as part of a series of code amendments to the C2 zone district, which is the Midland Downtown Core zoning. The Vitality Zone requires that first floor spaces facing Midland Avenue as well as Basalt Center Circle and a portion of Two Rivers Road, mainly the Youth Center building, must be either retail, restaurant, personal services like a salon or a barber, or a hotel use. It allows for exemptions such as for nonprofits. There are some waiver provisions that the Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission can temporarily waive requirements for community vitality uses, but it really is for temporary waivers, which the town has done twice in the past. Additionally, office space that was in place in 2009 when the Vitality Zone was established was able to stay and be replaced with other office uses as long as the space that held the office uses wasn't vacant for a considerable amount of time. Staff does feel that the Community Vitality Zone requirements are generally successful on Midland Avenue and Two Rivers Road. We do believe that Basalt Center Circle is a bit different in that it has a different character, as it had more first floor office space in 2009 when the code amendments were approved, and it also still has more office space than Midland Avenue and Two Rivers Road on the first floor. That said, staff thinks the Vitality Zone is working okay on the Basalt Center Circle area, in that there are temporary waiver potential from the council and P&Z. But staff, as I indicated, is seeking some direction from the council this evening. Staff recommends hearing from Ms. Austin and having some council discussion on the topic. Staff is looking for feedback and direction on whether council would like staff to put the code amendment to remove Basalt Center Circle from the Vitality Zone on staff's list of code amendments to get to when we have the opportunity. Or whether council believes that the Vitality Zone is appropriate the way it's established now and not to go ahead with future code amendments. We do have Peggy here this evening from Winfield Management. Peggy, would you like to provide some comments on why you're making the request?
Thanks for your time. We've struggled to lease the space in the building. We've had some examples of retail tenants who have gone out of business. They just are not able to make it. We lost our kitchen store that was in the space for a long time. There was a toy store we had in there. They went out of business. We had a kitchen design studio in there. They went out of business. You just don't have enough traffic back there. The building's not designed properly for a streetscape type of area. And I've brought our broker here with us, Mike Henry, who can speak to some of specific, leasing opportunities that we've tried to pursue and have not been able to take care of our vacant space there. So we just recently got in a not-for-profit tenant that we worked with James to approve and put them in there. The challenge with those tenants are they can't pay market rent. So we have to significantly discount what we give them the space for. So we're seeking relief for that portion of Basalt Center Circle. We feel we can bring some vitality in with office use. In fact, that's primarily what Challenge America is. It's office space that they're using the space for. So in support of vitality zoning, we see the space better used as more of an office use to bring people into downtown. Mike, do you want to speak to any of the vacant space?
Mike Henry with Fleischer Real Estate, and I would just say that as somebody, my feet are on the ground and I'm talking to these people, and I've been doing it for, in this area and for Peggy for the last 2 years. Previous to that, Fleischer had the account. And what she's speaking to is a significant challenge, and not necessarily on the main. I mean, the vitality zoning is a wonderful thing. It's a good goal. It's the main street certainly is where you want that. I think my contention is that if you have office support back into Basalt Center, it supports that. You're going to have more people in and out. Challenge America, for instance, is a nonprofit veterans group that will be bringing people in. Well, it's an office, but they'll be visiting. Veterans will be visiting places in the area. But again, in order to make that work, it's a deeply discounted rate, and it makes it very difficult for the property. And my main contention is that it supports vitality. Vitality does not necessarily have to be as defined in the present code. In this particular area, as it is away from the main drag, and it's really not so much a destination in that there's offices on both sides. There must be quite a few exemptions in place. And then, you have the Taylor Creek Fly Shop, and, that's a destination business. So when the guys coming in there, they're coming in to get their fishing stuff. So I just speak to that being somebody who has struggled with leasing in the area, in particular in this building.
And while there are procedures in place to seek special circumstances and exemptions, when you're doing leasing, tenants don't want to hear that. They're going to run to another space and find somewhere else right away. They're not going to take the time, give us the time to come to you and try and get an exemption in place. They're going to move on to somewhere else.
So staff would suggest having some council discussion, and as I indicated, staff is looking for some direction from council as to whether council would like staff to put this on our list of code amendments.
Okay, thanks. Council, would anyone like to discuss this? Anyone?
Well, I agree. It's off the beaten path, so to speak, and I don't know that it's benefiting us. It's not a destination, as that gentleman just stated. I think we need to do all we can to bring some vitality back to Basalt. The kitchen store was there for a good 10, 15 years, and the recession has hit hard, and we're having a lot more trouble recovering up here than we are in Willett. So I would give our business people the benefit of the doubt. If it goes haywire on us, we can always do something later. Is that correct, Ron? Or?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Katie?
James, can you just walk through the exemption process and what that really entails?
There's two types of exemptions that the boards can give, the P and Z and the council. There's the P and Z exemption, which is basically if there was an office use that went out somewhere else in the C2 zoning area that has the vitality zone, the P and Z can grant an exception on another property for that same amount of office use that went out somewhere else, so that you don't have a net change in office use in the vitality zone. The other one is a council exemption process. We reviewed one on 234 Midland, which was Herschel Ross's dentist office. It really allows for the council to give a temporary waiver for special circumstances.
So in this scenario, one of the things that's contemplated by the P and Z or the council is the net gain or loss, or trying to have a zero gain or loss in office space in this vitality zone.
Yeah, and that's primarily in the P and Z's exemption, but the council can also consider that as part of the council exemption process.
Thank you.
Well, you know, having an office with people in it is more vital than nothing, but we went through a whole public process, the council and P and Z in '09, and they did want to see retail, restaurant, and personal services, which is more vital than an office. So I'm a little bit pulled in two ways. I would hate to lose any of the retail, restaurant, and personal that's already located in those buildings, and that makes me reluctant to do a permanent change, which these other things we've done have just been waivers for a limited period of time. I might want, if I had more information, I would definitely consider a permanent change, but according to the staff recommendation, that any adjustments be limited to the area of Basalt Center Circle north of the Riverside Grill, and see how that goes. I'm not ready to jump in full hog yet.
So through the history and my time in Basalt, I adore the location of the storefront, of your space. And I do find it to be a destination. It is right on the Roaring Fork River. And I walk past there at least 3 times a week. And it has been a destination, and I have supported and had business dealings with almost every single one of those tenants. The toy store, the kitchen supply store, the kitchen design store. And so I see it as a prime location for retail. There's parking, there's designated parking spots, no? No?
Parking's very different.
Okay. I'm thinking of, there's signs in front that say for,
Everybody's got signs up to
Right.
try and prevent people who are not coming to the Salt Center Circle from parking there.
Got it, okay. And Basalt is mainly funded by our sales tax revenues. And removing, so there's, what I'm weighing here are the monetary pluses and losses. With it being an office space, there are more people that work there. They may go out to lunch at restaurants more frequently, so that will increase our restaurant. But on the other hand, it's a lost retail space. And with that in mind, if I am going to support the suggesting to staff to alter the zoning, I would first go for a temporary, see how that goes. If there's issues with the temporary, or it's not seen as being sufficient, which I understand is, it's more from a sales point of view. You're interested in selling the space per your letter than the leasing options.
Well, the sale was something we weren't soliciting, it came to us. So
Okay.
that example was someone who wanted an office space that saw our vacant space, said, we want to own the building that we're going to be in, so will you just sell the building to us, and we want to take over that space.
Okay,
Came out of the blue.
got it. Okay.
But that was an
Thanks.
example of how, you know, they looked at the vitality zoning as being a difficult thing to work with for the
Sure.
building.
I understand. Thanks for clarifying that. So, in my original feeling when I originally read this before our in-person here was to maintain the current code within the Vitality Zone, because that's something that we're aiming for in Old Town Basalt. And what people say that they enjoy about the charm of this town is having retail spaces that are unique businesses. And so that's where I stand, is maintain it or present to us what it would look like for a temporary. And how long the temporary, is it for 12 months, is it 18 months, is it per tenant?
Well, on the council waiver potential on an individual basis, it's really up to the council how long you would like to do that.
Okay.
I think on 234 Midland, it was a year is what the waiver was.
Okay, that's what I recall.
Do you have comments?
I do, but if you
Oh,
have.
no, you go, I already had my
Okay.
question.
Well, I was on council when we did this in 2009, and it was an interesting time. We went through a very large public process when we did this, and during the public process, a lot of people were concerned that if all of it went to office, if all of it went to, a lot of people were worried that it was gonna go to real estate offices. I mean, honestly, if it all goes to office, you lose your downtown anyway. Aspen's had that problem, and so, when we put this in place, it was to try to create, at least on the first floor, some vitality uses where you still have your downtown. And I totally understand, I don't like seeing empty spaces, and that's why I thought we put the council waiver in there, is that if you've got a long-term tenant who wants to be in office space, you can come and ask town council, right, for a waiver, right, James?
Yeah, but it's been more on a temporary basis.
It has only been a temporary basis? But, I mean, to me, if we're gonna change something, we gotta go through a public process. We need to be transparent to the public that we're trying to change a major portion of the downtown Basalt into something different. I personally don't like seeing empty store faces. I've seen the toy store go out, I've seen the kitchen store go out. The reality is with Basalt downtown, things are changing significantly. Who knows what's gonna happen to the park area, who knows what's gonna happen to the rest of the Basalt Center Circle properties. And so, I'd be willing to look at it because, I'd really like to see some offices here. I've really liked RMI coming in. I've liked, the ski company coming in. I mean, I really like the fact that there's still the first floor available on at least on the ski co, but RMI's here as an office. So I'm open to looking at it, but I need the public to be able to weigh in on it too, and not just us making an exemption from council. So that's where I kind of stand. Is that enough direction?
Well, I don't know that we got, I don't think we got consensus at all.
The problem is I don't think you're gonna get, I mean, the reality is Bernie had concerns, and tell me if I'm wrong, Bernie has concerns of changing it. I have concerns of changing it. I'm willing to look at it in a public process. Mark was okay with looking at it, and Katie was concerned.
Right.
Can I say one more thing? I just want to speak to one, the timing. When the public process went down in 2009, it was a different time, and we all know where it went from there. And I think what Ms. Austin is suggesting is a more targeted approach to the same thing, because vitality is obviously everybody's goal here. So a targeted approach to that zoning, maybe a possible redefinition of a targeted portion, not Main Street, and certainly probably, if I should be so bold to comment on specific places, but this is what I do. I show these spots. I watch these people walk away when they have to come in front of council, and they go somewhere else, and they bring their business model somewhere else. And it's no offense. It's just a process. So a targeted approach, like Bernie said, is something to consider, and that's all that I think Ms. Austin is asking right now, is for it to be considered. Because what you said is right too. You do walk down there, but how much shopping gets done right
You
there?
didn't spend enough.
Well, yeah, so, and
She tried.
I
she
sure tried. I
disagrees.
worked for billionaires and I
So
spent
that's
a
all I
lot
have
of
to say.
money.
More targeted, a consideration of a more targeted approach to the vitality zone.
Thanks. Tom?
Just to be clear, this is just a request, or a request, basically, meaning, do you want it on the agenda to consider it? You're not committed to anything. At the same time, you don't want to put somebody through a lot of hoops if it's a waste of time. But if you're willing to consider it, then it has to go through the public process.
I'm very comfortable with that approach.
Me too.
I'm willing to look at it. I mean, I personally just, you know, I'd like to look at it holistically in terms, I don't necessarily want to target because I want to look at it holistically with the rest of the town and how every piece fits together. You know, we're doing it with the Basalt Center Circle and the other pieces, and so that's where I'd be, but, you know, I'm willing to look at it.
I'm there too.
Okay.
That's fine.
So, yeah, I think you
Request
have
for
direction to, you know, we're willing to consider it, but, you know, that we do have concerns.
Okay, and I would just kind of clarify that, you know, James had a kind of an important sentence in there, in his backup, which was kind of direct us to add it to kind of our list of code amendments. As
Okay.
I think you know that we have a lot on our plate that we need to do, so.
Okay. Everyone good with that?
Yeah, but I don't want it to, here's 20 code amendments, yay or nay?
Yeah, let's not do all of it.
Yeah.
Didn't work too well.
Understood. I think we're just suggesting there's
Yes,
a lot on
I-
our plate, so
I think
it's-
we should
it's
go ahead.
not gonna come really quickly.
Okay, cool.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
James, could you just tell them outside, 'cause I think there's a lot of people.
So, yeah, so this is, I'm 30 minutes behind, Mark. You can give me another,
Oh, Gary.
Yeah, it's
Off to a
terrible.
bad start there, bud.
I'll be fired at the next meeting. Perfect. It's the greatest way to get fired. All right, so the next one is the presentation on status of Phase 2 of the
It's all
Pickens
here,
County Whitewater
Julian,
Park.
everybody coming in. So just a minute, we've got, hey Gary,
What?
we have a lot of people coming in, except Pickens County.
We give it a minute?
What?
I need a stiff drink, but I'll have to do with a soda.
Bring me one.
I'm gonna join you on that, Bertie.
Hi,
Do you have a preference?
What?
Good. No, I was just kidding, I'm good.
Whiskey or?
Yeah, Knob Creek.
Yeah, I was in Canada, and they have a Knob Creek smoked maple.
Oh,
Excellent. I took it every day skinning with me.
oh, bad,
in the
especially if it was
backcountry.
cold, cold.
Oh my God, but the maple, smoked maple wasn't too sweet, and it still had the Knob Creek. I'm in love. If I can find it here, I'm buying more.
You can have that one.
I don't want that.
Eggnog.
I'm a Reese's cup.
Oh, you said River Park. Oh, the Whitewater Park.
Yeah.
No.
Want that one?
I don't want any.
How about a mint?
I'm good. I already had one. No, no cough drops.
Were they equivalent?
Just checking.
Yeah, okay, okay, got it, all right. Right there. Right, yep.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you.
Hi.
Julie.
Thanks for having us.
Sorry, I'm a half hour late. I'm getting fired. Next meeting, I'm not the mayor anymore.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
Where did Jen and Bernie go? Don't let them leave.
Need one more.
I know.
It's 7:30, it feels like 9:30 to talk more.
I know, it's pretty early, but it's supposed to be like 9:30.
Does.
Everyone's sick of hearing me anyway.
I need one more. Yeah, where are
I
they?
mean, I can go
Hello? Ernie said he was getting a soda.
What'd you say?
What do you want?
Pass it down.
Deserve at least some candy. All right, we got 5.
Or 4, whatever we are.
4. Isn't that enough?
Yeah,
We
4 is
got
good.
4 out of 7, yeah.
Great. Okay, so we're doing the presentation on status of Phase 2 of the Picken County Whitewater Park streamside improvements for, you want council questions and feedback. Susan and Post.
Okay, so I'm gonna give some background on this, but I'm gonna rely heavily on our post members, which we have Julie Kolar, who isn't feeling very well and dragged herself to our meeting, and Cindy Bruce from Post, but also from Picken County Healthy Rivers and Streams. We have John Ely and Lisa McDonald from the County Attorney's Office, and Quinn Donnelly from River Restoration, and they're here to really answer questions. So just as kind of general background, we spent quite a bit of time at our November 22nd and December 13th meeting talking about these kind of first improvements that were needed because of timing reasons, really at the edge of the riverbank. And ultimately, Pickett County decided that they would agree to pick up the cost for those improvements. And during that discussion, we flagged to all the council that we were going to be back in terms of talking about the Phase 2 improvements for the Whitewater Park. I think everybody knows that we approved the Whitewater Park to approve a RISD, and that I'm sorry, Pam's telling me that you need a different symbol, Pam, because that I'm not talking into the mic, but we had a specific land use approval for the Whitewater Park, and it required that Pickett County make certain safety improvements to Two Rivers Road. The police department required that there be stairs to the river. There was a pedestrian corral that to provide safety for pedestrians that are walking along Highway 82. But the ordinance recognized that there needed to be a bigger public process, that there needed to be more streamside amenities, and really initiated a public input process to get input on what those improvements would be. So Pickett County has done that. They've had 2 meetings, and they also solicited comments on the streamside improvements through their website. And so what we're going to talk as option 1 is really the minimum improvements that Pickett County had to do. And they prepared cost estimates for what those improvements are. And then Pickett County prepared cost estimates for option 2. And option 2 was kind of the citizen preferred stream bank improvements. And James, could you just kind of quickly just flash through the 3 plans? I'm not really talking about this one. I wanted the illustrations.
This is option 1, which basically had the minimum requirements from the ordinance. It included the pedestrian corral around Two Rivers Road, as you can see here. It also, and I'm not on the mic here, but it also has the path down to the river that the fire district needed. And as you get closer to the river, downriver piece, it had stairs, as you can see in this area, that the police department asked for. It included new crosswalks on Two Rivers Road, and then it included improvements to the parking at Fisherman's Park. That you can see here. it added parking spaces, and then there were some adjustments to the boat ramp, and then there were additional parking spaces and boat trailer spaces on the north side of Two Rivers Road.
Sorry.
It had a stair scenario with it, but the police department actually preferred a different alternative on the stairs. Here was option number 2 that Susan was referring to.
Go ahead, James, go ahead.
Go ahead and describe that.
Yeah.
It had more of a viewing platform that you could see in this location, close to the river feature. And it also had some stairs that made their way down. That was the big difference. It required the road to move to the north, so there would have to be pretty significant improvement and change. And once again, as you move closer to Fisherman's Park, the road would move to the north.
So Pickens County, you know, the town had been using Loris and Associates to prepare our Two Rivers Road master plan. So some initial concepts that the council looked at the land use hearings were done by Loris. But for this exercise, Pickens County picked up the consultant fees and did cost estimates between the two options. And basically, there was a $500,000 difference between option 1 and option 2. And keep in mind, these are only done on 10% design plans. So Pickens County presented these plans to staff, and we presented them at a Parks, Open Space, and Trails meeting. And our Parks, Open Space, and Trails meeting, the post committee recommended what we're calling option 1.1. So I'm going to turn it over to post to really kind of briefly talk about what their ideas were.
Well, I think we decided that it was more expensive than what we had money for. And so we kept some of the pieces for safety and tried to make the stair more of a multi-use viewing platform. So it would be attractive, and you could have wide benches for viewing, for sitting, and hanging out there, and that would maybe solve 2 problems where we still maintain the stair that the police and fire department wanted, and then still had a place where people could come and hang out and enjoy watching the river park. So, and something that was more affordable for our place.
Yeah, I mean, I guess essentially we were trying to respond to when you guys first looked at the plan options. And our sense was that we needed to come up with something that was still going to appease to the public, but while addressing the financial concerns. And I guess the question that still rises in my mind is, have we looked at the financial aspects of it, exhausted all potential funding options for that, or are we just reacting to planned costs based on 10% drawings and kind of throwing away some opportunity? It's really just a question. I don't know the answer to that. We threw out option 1.1 just sort of as to reflect and respond to, well, what if we took some things and, like Cindy was explaining, combined them to address more of the requests and the requirements rather than less, because we felt that option 1 was so stripped down that we might be sorry later. You know, it's going to obviously cost less to build it now, to do some of the improvements now. So our thought was, if we're really truly are financially driven and making our decisions based on that, we might as well get a little bit more now with reasonable costs associated. So that was kind of our task, I guess, if that summarizes it. So, we're obviously not designing these plans, but we were taking what we had to work with and tried to kind of mesh them together a little bit.
And trying not to be too short-sighted.
Exactly.
And hopefully we are going to make the best park we can make with, the financial constraints that we're given.
So the question is, in 1.1, what was kept? Was it just a modified staircase in 1.1?
For the most part. Yeah, there's just actually just other smaller, minor changes that were made between the two. James, do you want to kind of just point out the stairway?
Most significant,
The
probably.
stairway is the most significant. We asked, the one didn't asphalt all of the parking at the west end of the site, and we required that. There's a slight kind of change in, right where the stairs kind of enter Two Rivers Road, just to get the widths the fire department needed and where they were, things were changed. What else, James?
Well, the other important piece is the fire district needed 12 feet, 12-foot wide lanes in the option one. There was only 11-foot lanes, I believe.
That's correct, to accommodate.
So they needed to expand kind of that platform from what was designed in option one, and that was an important section for that.
Why?
Why?
Did they give you a reason why they needed a 12-foot lane on?
Yeah, they felt that, given the traffic that's there, that you actually needed 12 feet for their engines to.
Partly it had to do with the speed, even though that we're slowing down. It was a lot different than, because it's a through movement versus, we actually got them to reduce the lanes at the Basalt Avenue intersection, but there it was a very controlled, very short space, and people were,
You didn't have the run-up distance to get a great speed, but you have a greater run here to actually get a higher speed.
So the other important piece of the difference between option one and option two that maybe we didn't emphasize is that that option requires reworking the bank of town-owned property. So we own that property, we own Two Rivers Road, we own the river, essentially in this location, and it's really reworking the bank. Now, there's logistics about reworking the bank now that we've done the work below, but that's really where the additional cost is coming in, is reworking the bank and moving the slope at a more gentle grade. So basically, we didn't want, Pickett County's under a deadline, because the police department is really adamant that by May that they have these facilities in. So they really need to move forward with, not that we have to decide at this meeting, that's why we put it at this meeting, because we learned kind of last time that we don't want to put the council kind of in an uncomfortable position of, oh, you have to decide tonight. But if there's any additional information that you need, we can bring it back. But again, a lot of this was in reaction to the fact that there was a lot of discussion. Pickett County's responsible for doing the minimum requirements. The language about the additional amenities, the words in the hearings between Pickett County and the town of Basalt were partnerships. So it really was, there was a counselor that was very concerned about what was said at those meetings, and James went back and listened and went through the minutes, and the words are partnership on these additional amenities. And so that's why we took this, the difference of cost between 1 and 1.1 and just split it and said it would be an additional $11,500. So if you want us to explore more, or you bring something back, or give us kind of direction of what your thinking is, that's kind of what we were looking for tonight.
So I really want to thank Pitkin County. I am so excited. This is such a cool project. I am a huge whitewater fanatic. I love being in the rivers in the summertime. And also maintaining our water rights is phenomenal. So this is such a win-win project. And as a whitewater enthusiast and having kayaked and considering, I have a couple questions. What is the material of the stairs? Is it corrugated metal? Is it Trex? What is it?
Yeah, Quinn Donnelly from River Restoration. You know, it's gonna be, I think the framing is gonna be metal as far as with the decking material and stuff. I don't think we've detailed that out yet. It'd be some sort of, you know, cause it's gonna be pretty much suspended off the side of the bank that's
Sure.
there now. You know, once we get direction to move forward with a particular design, I think we would work with Susan and the town to figure out what materials we wanna use,
Okay,
some of that stuff. But it'd probably be a metal frame with some sort of decking that would allow, you know, water to go through it and snow and things.
perfect. Okay, great. And then I'm also wondering, what is the width of the stairs? Is it wide enough to have a kayak on your shoulder, turn a corner, and not take someone out? Having done that before.
Quinn, I think we're looking at you on
I
that
know,
one.
I wanna
Yeah,
make sure I
okay.
get my facts straight, I apologize.
Just, and you don't have to answer, but just as things to keep in mind to ensure.
Yeah, so I think if you look, and James, if you wanna go to that sheet, and it's up on the wall here too. You know, with this kind of expanded platform, I think there is more room, you know, maybe on the stairs themselves, it might be kinda tight, but there is, you know, you'd see somebody and you'd be able to stay at a platform and let that person walk by or whatever, and there's not a lot of turns, so I think it would be, you know,
Sure.
easier than harder.
Okay, so that's one of my, my thoughts is, I would like to see the stairs be wider than the platforms being wider. It's wonderful for people to stand and watch, but when you're the person that's performing the athletic endeavor, it's important for that person to have a very safe experience.
Of course.
And
And keep in mind, you know, we,
access.
as part of the project that's being built right now, that pathway on the downstream end, that was kind of intended for kayakers and folks to, you know, walk down the path, go down out on the boulders and get in either the downstream pool or the upstream pool to use that feature.
Right.
So I think that access from a boating perspective is there regardless of whether the stairs are in or not, but this is kind of secondary.
And staff sat down with the fire district and the police department, and the stairs are wide enough to get a gurney out, so that was part of the conversation.
Okay.
So they are pretty wide.
Great. And then a part that I'm really excited about is the boat ramp. I utilize the boat ramp a lot, like twice a weekend. And what type of improvements are being done to that steep, dirt, rutted, narrow boat ramp?
Yeah, so, you know, that's being done as part of the, you know, already funded river work project, and, the contractor, I think, should be actually starting on that in the next couple of weeks. He's, you know, starting to finish up the main piece of the project. And, you know, the ramp itself, he's basically just gonna regrade it and re-rock it, you know, take out some of the ruts and just make it easier to access. You can't do a lot with the slope because, you know, you're fixed with the road at the top and the river at the bottom, so you kind of are stuck with what you got. So make it just a smoother, so folks can back their trailers and easier. And then down in the river itself, you know, over time, that eddy is kind of eroded away, so it's hard to take out there now.
Right.
I know during bigger water, I've missed it a couple times.
Completely.
So we're gonna rework the rocks that are there, maybe bring in some additional rocks to kind of rebuild that eddy to provide folks, you know, spot for folks to be able to catch and get out of the water there. So
Okay.
not, you know, huge changes, it's just kind of reworking what's there.
Sure. Okay, that's great. And then another thought, an opportunity for the future funding is being part of the Basalt Emergency BEMC is that annually or not annually, but through some period of time, Chief Knott needs to, or comes up with some sort of mitigation project within Pitkin County and Eagle County. And he and I have been discussing this, and some of the ideas include removing more of the debris from under, from the river, on the Roaring Fork River under the highway bypass there. Much debris does build up there, and CDOT does take care of that. But one of the ideas is, we're talking about funding sources. Is there some sort of mitigation project that you can see that we could use this grant money towards creating some additional amenity or mitigating an issue that you see? I just want to put that out there for something you to think about when you're noodling on this.
Is there a way to understand what those dollars look like, or what we actually have to work with in terms of the mitigation?
That would be maybe outreach to Chief Knott directly. all that I have is a mitigation project, an issue to address, paid for by grant money, that's multi-beneficial. Funding option.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else?
I'm awake. Option one, 380,000. Option two, about 390,000, or sorry, option 1.1. 390,000, option two, 840,000. The suggestion is that option 1.1 would be split 50-50 with Picken County. And is Picken County on board with that?
You know, we wanted to kind of get direction from you before we had a lot of discussion about it. And I don't know if John want to say anything here or Rich. So we had it, we kind of wanted it, before we got too far down the road, we kind of checked in with you guys.
Okay, and of the 380,000 that we were expecting, that's coming out of post.
No, the original funds are Picken County obligation to make safety improvements for their ordinance.
So that's the 380.
Yeah, right, Jane, that's the 380, the original option one. We're not responsible for that at all.
Excellent. So we would be potentially responsible for $11,500 to make the upgrades to option 1.1.
Right, and keep in mind that, you know, this is 10% cost, and we don't know really where we're gonna get at. In the capital improvement plan, you know, we had put 40,000 as kind of a guess of kind of expecting that things could change, or there's something else that could come up that would make an improvement in this area.
Okay, thank you.
I think maybe a good point just to consider, and that it kind of hinges on that, is, you know, the discussion of the stairs, I guess, is really the issue when we go to the second, or the 1.1 option. And what we were trying to do is take a completely 100% utilitarian, probably fairly ugly, out of natural context thing, and integrate it, make it useful, make it so that everyone could use it as the platform and whatnot. So our sense is that, you know, if it does cost a little more to make the treads larger or wider, make the platforms a better material, maybe there's more surrounding elements that are better rather than just the pure metal stairs, there may be some costs associated with that. So I think it's worth considering that there may be a 1.1B that enhances that a little bit further, because right now it's still pretty stripped down. Like, we're trying to take something utilitarian, make it more user-friendly for citizens, but it's still quite stripped down, just to put that out there. So my hunch is that it would be really nice if we could make it a little better, a little more enhanced, a little bit more integrated, so that it feels natural, because the rest of the areas, of course, are quite natural, so.
Yeah, and that was the beauty more of what Picken County had thrown out to the citizens, is it looks nicer. I mean, to have a more natural stair, you know, going down to the river, it does look nicer.
So there's some considerations there that I feel like we should just throw it out as a caveat and not fixate on an exact dollar number, because that may or may not suffice. Not that we want to go hog wild, but, you know, just to be honest.
Great, thanks.
Well, oh, sorry, Jen.
So, as council, as a, providing guidance, I have been supportive of a very basic design since the talk was initiated, and I'd like to continue with the basic. And it doesn't need to, I don't foresee the beautification and et cetera. We have so many projects within the town of Basalt that I'm not going to fixate on a number, but I'd like to provide the guidance to post to keep it analog, keep it simple.
Well, and I'm gonna disagree on that one, because to me, you know, when we build a lot of recreational facilities, and if you don't do it well, and you don't make it usable, and you don't at least try to make it fit in, a council in the future is gonna have to spend money to fix it. And so I'd rather do something right now than to, you know, than to like have a future council come in. Why'd they do that? You're just saving money, but now it's gonna cost us an extra $50,000 or $60,000 to improve upon it. And I agree that I do not want to go to option 2. That's fiscally irresponsible to go that far with where we're at. But I like option 1.1, and I think I would like option 1.1A a lot better, because I think if this metal staircase is gonna look out of character if we don't figure out a way to make it look nicer. And I think we could do that without absolutely breaking the bank. And I think Picken County's gonna be a partner in this. I feel they will be. And I think it's not gonna cost the town, another $100,000. It's gonna cost the town maybe another $20,000 or $30,000. And I think in the end, we want something that people go, hey, I can use, and it looks good. So that's where I'm at with it, but I do agree to keep it towards the 1.1 area, but make that, I wasn't very excited about the metal staircase to begin with, but I don't wanna, I understand the need from the fire department and from the police department, and I do not wanna argue that point. I just wanna, let's make this part viewing platform, make it seem like this is actually the focal point, and this is where people should go to watch. And I can see myself walking down Elk Run Drive and being there, so I'd rather it look as nice as possible with, with better material. Obviously, it's a metal structure, but I think you can make metal structures look pretty.
And with that, I am really excited about the metal, because what I originally imagined it being was railroad ties. That's what we're used to on the Arkansas River, and so that's where, when I'm saying keep it analog, I'm not saying railroad ties. Like a metal staircase, that's luxury.
Pardon?
I would agree with what Gary said. I would go to 1.1A.
But no further, right? I'm in that point.
Show me art, Gary. I love art.
Yeah, no, I don't wanna I don't wanna spend a fortune, but I do wanna, we have a good partnership with the county. I mean, this thing is getting built, and it could be a really cool amenity for the town. And so I think, if we don't provide something now like a viewing platform, we're gonna wanna provide it in the future. And if this could be both, we might solve it right here.
That's what we thought.
Yeah,
We're trying to take something that felt like a sore thumb and turn it into something intentional.
Plus, the original idea was that the stairs might be stairs that would be closed off. They wouldn't not be available to the public. They would just be for emergency management, which seemed to us like an attractive nuisance, because who wouldn't go down them even if you weren't supposed to, so.
People get out of the way once there's an emergency, so. And you still have a police department, they'll get people out of the way.
Okay, so we're gonna pursue 1.1A, and we're gonna talk to Picken County. And Picken County, do you need anything else from us? You good?
You good?
Thank you, everyone, for coming and giving us the information that we needed in a timely manner, so, okay.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So the next is another parks. You get to sit
We
right there.
get to stay. I'm so sorry about my frog voice, it's terrible.
Honestly, I give you a lot of credit for coming.
Oh.
So it's more dedication, because
Trying.
you just kind of go, I would really rather be home.
Well, we have a small committee.
We do, I know, I couldn't leave Cindy on her
Yeah,
own.
everybody,
That would be-
for the
yeah,
next one,
That would be
come on up.
entirely unfair, because I'd kill you if you left me by myself, right?
So Susan and Julie and Cindy, take it away.
Again.
Okay, so we're again in front of you looking for direction, and I also, just like the last item, I mean, if you need more information, that's why we're here. We're looking for some initial feedback and direction. Now, council's given a lot of direction to post on the Basalt River Park. But one thing that the direction has been is design the park, the bucket of list of everything that you would like on the park, cost that out, spend money figuring out how much it's gonna cost, and then come back to us and we're gonna develop a financing strategy. And we did that. We came up with some pretty substantial costs for the river park, and before we went to bond, we whittled them back. But now we're in front of you suggesting maybe that you do something else because the bond didn't pass. So we don't have millions of dollars to spend on the park. So instead, we're asking you to give us the bookend of how much money do you want us to spend on the park. The informal feedback that we've gotten so far from the council is we want to see a park and we want to see it now. So Post started those discussions, and you know, one of the councilors was even indicating that we'd like to see a park in June, we'd like to be able to use the park. And so kind of our discussions really kind of started out from that standpoint. And is the reason that you have an option A and an option B in front of you. But before I kind of highlight that, I just want to say that there was a good segue from the conversation that we had at the prior discussion, which is if you don't spend the money building the proper park infrastructure, you're only going to spend it later in rebuilding it and in maintenance. And you know, we saw that in Triangle Park in Willits, where the town rebuilt that park, you know, just recently with Post money, and part of that was building turf. And we understand that Crown Mountain also has some significant maintenance costs because you know, the base of the turf. So one thing that we're asking you is give us a bookend of funds. And the other thing that we were kind of asking you is, do you want us to even pursue this idea of a pop-up park, or do you want us to do this larger area of the park, which we called option B? And we just did bubble diagrams for you. We didn't do like fancy consultant drawings. I think James and I wanted to put like a little note at the bottom that these drawings weren't done by professionals, but we're just kind of, we're trying to throw out this option A and option B in front of you. Option A is kind of this idea of a pop-up park where, you know, you could go out quickly and do a little pop-up park, kind of with this new idea. I don't know if you've done any literature about it, done any readings, but this is done in cities where they take over streets and take over parking spaces and make parks. This would be a government action of making a little park. You know, we were looking for a turfed area about the size of this room, put a little food truck there, put one of BPAC's art installations, informal fire pit, and some fun patio furniture, you know, and call it good. At the same time, you know, spending a little bit more time in a more systematic planning process for the river park itself. What we had kind of laid out for the river park in option B, which you see in front of you, is about an acre of turf. We have the little map there. It's kind of showing you generally, you know, where that space would be. It was kind of generally the baseline park area that you're seeing, that you included in the bond, but of course, it doesn't include anything on the CDC property, and it doesn't include that little corner where the stage is, and obviously the stage is not included in that. So that's option B. I have some pros and cons of both of those. We specifically asked Yancey Nickel from Sopris Engineering to come to this meeting, and we have Laura Kirk and Stephen Elsperman from DHM, you know, really to be a good resource for you. And you know, I have a feeling at this meeting we don't want to get into the weeds about how we can manage a construction process where we get to bid, you know, sooner than later, because until you really get a response to bids, you don't really know how much it's going to cost. You know, and a perfect example is Basalt underpass, where, you know, we were thinking it was going to cost $3.6 million, and we got the initial bids at over $7 million. Whereas we had used the same person had prepared the cost estimates and not that much difference in time for the Willits underpass, and we were only, somewhere under $200,000 difference between our cost estimate and what it costs us to build the Willits underpass. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of share with you is that some of the similarities between maybe option A and option B. And one of the big things that I wanted to point out is that we've been talking to our river hydrologist, Robert Crable, and he was prepared to be available by phone. But as a first step on the park improvements, what we need to do is an additional improvement of culverting a portion of that open water body that you see over on the park. There's a little fence there, and that's really needed to stabilize the bank. So before we, before we have another spring runoff, and two, before we bring kids and families down into that area that has a kind of really steep bank and a funky fence there, that we want to make that improvement. Maybe I'll throw it open to Cindy and Julie.
What was the improvement again?
It's a
Just what do you, like, what are you gonna do to the ground?
well, the initial thing, the interim thing that I'm talking about, the first step thing, you're doing a culvert that's taking the existing storm water and groundwater, and you're taking that through that, where the open water is now, in that steep area, and you're taking it further downstream. You're creating a more stable riverbank
Okay.
in that area.
And
They were
covering that with soil?
covering that with soil. And,
Okay.
apparently there was a lot of concern, there's been a lot of concern with the riverbank, that everybody was anxiously watching it last year to make sure that it didn't overtop. And they were seeing that improvement would, that we would do the bond improvement and river improvements, and we would catch up and do that needed improvement, but it needs to be done regardless. Anybody, Yancey, do you want to add to that or anything?
Not necessarily. Be glad to answer any questions if you
Okay. Okay.
It also
So-
increases the surface area where the park is actually existing. So we're utilizing that water source for hopefully an eventual, like, kid play area, but we're enclosing the majority of it that's not helpful while also getting the stabilization. So I think it's kind of it's a bit of a win-win. It obviously has to be done, but.
And it was envisioned like in the master plan that you saw today. Do you guys want to say something before I kind of jump into the pros and cons of the options, or?
Well, I think that the reason, maybe I'll just throw out there the philosophical way I'm looking at it, is that the reason for looking at options, I think, is not just cost related. It also is related to sort of a design intention that if we don't know what's going on the CDC parcel, it's very difficult to coordinate, react appropriately. There's obviously grading differences that would become extremely prevalent once a parking garage kind of lifted the development grade. There's a lot of questions that if we just build a park and sort of sheet the whole thing with grass, it sounds on the surface kind of easy, but it actually creates a lot of question marks and a lot of issues potentially down the road. And so I think that our thought was, is there a creative way to solve it all? In other words, create a park out there that people can use. That's clearly what everybody wants to see, but in not such a complete way where we've spent a ton of money that we might have to backtrack on. So I think that's kind of where we're standing right now, is we don't have a lot of answers. And so it's very difficult to be extremely responsive and very well designed when you don't have all the answers. So that's our hesitation, I guess, as a group.
Yeah, we don't want to spend money and then have to backtrack on this huge park that, is going to become an eyesore then.
And maybe it would help if we just kind of went through the pros and cons, and then maybe circle back to the big question that we want to throw, and then we can ask, more questions questions, but the pop-up, you know, again, pros, relatively inexpensive, you could build it quickly. Here's an important one that we have to think about, is that you could approve it with very little process. We'd probably do an administrative site plan exemption. And, you know, the idea is that we have some fun things. You know, the fire pit, the more fun furniture rather than the expensive furniture that we had in the bond program. Con, this definitely would be some throwaway costs, although some items could be reused. And, you know, a big con would be that some folks would feel that they were promised a river park and they really aren't getting one at all. James, could you go to the next one? Pros of doing a phase 2 river park, and keep in mind what this would be is, you know, turfing about an acre of land, putting in some trails, some trees and shrubs. You know, pros would be the folks who felt that they were promised a park in this location would get one. A sense of accomplishment that a project's done. This idea that no rough ground would be a fairly manicured, complete look on a significant area of the town-owned property. As people come over the bridge, of course, it would end then where the CDC property is, and it would only be this 1 acre. It wouldn't go into, of course, the wetland mitigation area and everything that we have to do for that. Con is significantly more process. We need to prepare and process an ESA floodplain review, and that isn't a really big deal because all the work is done, but it's just a step that has to happen. But we probably need some kind of a site-specific plan review under the current C2 zoning, or a rezoning and site plan for the town-owned property. 2, it would be expensive potentially in relation to what the community's getting. Cindy, I think, mentioned this chance of air and grading as it relates to the development parcel, or a missed opportunity to reduce the impact as you see the development coming out of the park. And there's more uncertainty today in terms of how the park will relate to the future development of the area, of the Big V and Polygon. Second to the last is it potentially elevates, James, could you scroll, because like Judy's just, her head's like it, but no, that's good. Potentially elevates the need to work with the CDC on the boundary and the private property issues. And, you know, the town doesn't own the CDC property, so how the park relates to the private rights of the CDC property and how we do construction access, we just need to work through it. And, you know, it does prevent this idea of looking at other funding sources or grants that might be available. And could you scroll it up just a little bit more, James? I'm trying, it's frozen. Okay. And, you know, when we did the bond, it eliminates the potential for going back to the voters once you had a very definitive idea, and maybe better, you know, a more definitive idea of what the costs are, because we could go potentially to bid before we went back to the voters. So, you know, if we move quickly, then, you know, we do lose those opportunities. So, again, I think what we're kind of looking for you is a bookend of how much do you want to spend? Do you want to spend $500,000? Do you want to spend $600,000?
We kind of need to know how much this stuff's going to cost.
And know how much we have available in post funds.
Well, the post funds, there's a couple different numbers you can look at. One is that when we did the budget, okay, we identified $710,410 of other park improvements, and that's where this would come from.
But what's our total available? What I have from what we last had it from Bruce in November, that only $971,000 are available in the post fund.
looking,
I think we went with option 3 and
but this was assuming that the bond was going to pass. And
so
I
what
think-
are the actual, I'd
Okay,
love to
so-
know what the
so
actual
in the
post.
budget that you approved, here's the budget sheet.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we have other park improvements with $710,000. That would be how much money that you have, your, kind of your book and end. Technically, on your little sheet that we gave you on the capital improvement plan, we put a little bit more money in there because we're not going to spend some of the money on Old Pond Park because we're gonna tie that this year because we're gonna tie the improvement. But we were thinking that, you know, I mean, $500,000, $600,000 might be a good target for what we're gonna do on that acre of land.
And Susan, was the culvert improvement part of that, or is that coming
I
from
think
a
the culvert
different-
was included in that.
And that's not to say that, I mean, just to throw out the obvious, but you could steal from other projects if you wanted to. I mean, obviously, we have allocated different, I mean, that's not the total amount of
Yeah.
money in the post fund. That is what we've allocated outside of other projects that have already been identified and planned for. So I'm not suggesting that, but it's to keep it an open conversation so that, you know, we can
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah.
So both options are about the same price?
No,
No, no, no.
option A would be, you know, something under $100,000, yeah,
The pocket park.
yep.
So you're talking about improving 1,000 square feet and leaving the other 39,000 the way it is?
Just for now, just for a very temporary, short amount of time.
I think the people are ready for some green out there. 1,000 square feet. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, and just to be totally clear, that is a completely temporary solution. Only so that there's something out there immediately this summer. It's something that we can appreciate, we can build it very quickly. We don't have to go through a public process to do it. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, what could we get in a very short amount of time? And
For
that's
how
what we,
much? And I need to know how much.
right. That's the,
If
probably
it's
around,
$300,000 for
Thinking around 100,000.
around 100
Okay,
or less.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, a seventh or whatever that is.
And
And on these two options, just to be clear, the question, one of the things is, you know, with the post committee, you know, we kind of look to you guys to make recommendations to us. And in this instance, you gave us a 1.1 in the other one. What do you guys, what is post thinking about for, you know, for
In
both of these
between.
options?
What's our opinion?
Yeah.
You know, I was
I
gonna
think
say,
we're
we go back and
thinking-
forth.
Yeah, I think we're thinking the pop-up just because there's so many unknowns. And we feel like if we spend the 700,000 to get a grassy area, because that's basically all it's gonna be.
It
And
won't
then-
cost that much. No way.
Well, that was a guesstimate, I guess, an
Mhm.
estimate, but, that it's going to be a disappointment. And then we're gonna have to backtrack with many things when whatever building gets built, that, you know, the grade has to be changed, and there's some underlying irrigation and whatnot that needs to be done as well, so.
I cannot see people accepting a park the size of this room as a park. I would suggest a 1.5 option, which is more a half option, which might be 1/3 to 40% of the park in the area least likely to be subject to revision by by the future building. And we have no idea. I mean, I am hoping that we will get some land dedication and maybe some governmental money from Eagle and Pitkin. They said they'd give us money before, that we would get at V. Somehow we would end up with the V, and then we would obviously want an integrated park design. So I'm not satisfied with the pop-up, and I understand. So I'm saying come up with some significant level of park, half or a third, covered in grass, and least likely to be disturbed, but with the possibility of disturbance. You know, the rate this thing has been going, we might not get approvals on it, I don't know when. So I want something that's really usable, you know.
So you, on this photo, James, can you go to the option B photo? Oh, you don't have the photo on there? Okay, so if you look at the option B photo, there's a dotted blue line that supposedly is that V, I think. So, and it's almost, it's not quite 2/3 of the whole thing. Is what, you know, I'm worried about, I have the same concern as Bernie, is that I worry about if we do too little, people will be like, really? That's not what we were expecting. And I look at it going, I truly believe that we're still, as a community, we're not as divided as we think. We just don't know how to pay for this. And if we could build the V part of our park, get rid of the loop trail, but just build out that part and at least just get it grassed and culverted, small children's play area or a larger children's play area than that. I think at least that's a start. And I'd really like it to phase to the next level. I don't wanna, I agree with Cindy completely, and you, that I don't wanna, the area that's closer to where people are looking at development, I'd rather that not get a whole lot of work right now, because it could be seriously impacted by grading and what we do with trying to integrate into the development area. So, but I do agree with Mark and Bernie that a little more, or much more than the pocket park would be my preference. And I'm happy to go through these processes. I mean, I want this park piece to be a public process. I mean, I know the pop-up is quick and we get something this summer, but the way we were talking about it and the way I talked about it after the election was, okay, the people did not want to pay for it. But I still believe a lot of people want at least the park on the property that we own to be created. And it's, I look at it going, couldn't we get that going? Maybe get it done by the end of the summer?
Well, I was gonna say, so it's not gonna be in June, though. I mean, we had feedback that we, you know, people wanted to, on the council wanted to see a park in June. So.
That's why the pop-up park started to gain traction. So it's,
Okay.
there are several things that kind of feed into this. So it's kind of like we can't do it all, obviously. So then we have to figure out where in that division of how much, how soon.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead, Jen.
So, to post, I really appreciate you spending your time. And as an advisory board to council, our guidance and priority in budgeting are along the lines of maybe not necessarily a park done in June, but seeing action work towards in September, there's grass. I think that's a realistic human expectation, is not for there to be a park that popped up. We all understand that things take time to make. With it as well, I'm aligned with Bernie and Gary, and as well to staff, when you come back next time, please include the monies that are available in post.
She gave it to you.
Right, 700, right. But I want to know how much is available in the entire fund. Because
There's 2.3 in income typically and 650 that we're gonna be copping out
to the
for
underpass.
Well, here's the,
But I mean, you know, and we're gonna have a meeting with the post group in February, to discuss the overall budgetary process, and that was what I brought up.
Right.
Let's not get confused with the CIP, those numbers, because we're going to discuss the budget overall.
So that leads me very well, Bernie, to suggesting that we have this work session with post ASAP about funding. If we're talking about some grand or not so grand, I need to have a budget talk about what is available and going back to the burger, shake, and fries. I need to know how much money is in my pocket before I start ordering. And so, that's where I would like to propose, since we don't have a set work session for our next council meeting, to move the post-budget meeting up to our next council meeting on January 24th.
Yeah, our only problem with the 24th was availability of our post members.
Yeah, we
Sure.
can't be there, so.
Okay, well, why don't we do the quickest, we'll do the quickest one meeting that we can get, where the post committee comes together. And, you know, I think you got, well, Katie.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things. First, I want to thank you both so much, because this has been such a massively time-consuming, very political process, and you're hanging in there, so thank you so much. I think the pros and cons were absolutely fabulous, and I think were things that I didn't even consider, being that I'm the furthest thing from a landscape architect. So thank you for all of that. And also thank you so much for contemplating our fiscal constraints and being like, let's not just below the 700, and we'll deal with it next year when we have more post money come in. So thank you for all of those things. And I'm just going to reiterate where we're all at and say that I agree that we definitely need more than the pop-up, and reality dictates that something more than that will be later in the summer, and fully accept that. And I think Gary pointed out a great line that we've all been talking about, and that's that V dotted line. I don't know if you have the drawings in front, but maybe if that can be our
Memorized.
our option C, and maybe coming up with that option, and then getting some numbers and coming back
I think
soon.
what pops in my head is to, and I think it's a great way to look at it. It's like we kind of gave you both ends of the spectrums, and this is kind of in the middle somewhere. And I kind of, if this sounds good to you guys, like what pops in my head is to look at that section, we'll call it, from the point of the V. It ends up being kind of a polygon in and of itself, I guess, yeah. To do that area with, say, just turf, you know, the irrigation, the topsoil, all of those things that are necessary, and then to also look at it with a portion of children's play area that incorporates that water feature. So maybe there's two things we look at, the sort of middle option with a high and a low end. Does that sound good?
To get costs on those.
To get costs on those, to kind of look at design and costs on those. So we're not just coming up with one middle, we're coming up with two options for that middle ground.
How
Does
many
that-
middles can you have?
I mean, I guess we keep talking about this for a really long time, but
I think that, I honestly, I really appreciate that. I think
Okay.
that'll give us kind of
a reference.
a really good starting point. And I think, you know, we need to make a decision, hopefully at the meeting, that when we can just say, hey, let's go forward with that, and we'll pick one of those. So if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, that's good.
And the one kind of clarification that I wanted to make is, we need to move ahead right away with this contract. So we're gonna do that piece. And Laura, Kirk, and I went through kind of the schedule about going out to bid for, you know, how much time it would take to kind of do the grading plans and the specs so that you could go to bid. And it all works to start in the fall, except that we have this additional layer of the land use process on top of this and doing the site plan review. So I'm not sure we'll play with it and see what the schedule is, but I'm not sure we're gonna be able to pull that off. And then the other thing is just to fly that we'll work with Ron about how we move forward with the contract so that we're, you know, consistent with the direction of the town council. But, you know, we've got a lot of work to do that isn't work that the town staff can do, so. And we'll be
And then
relying on our team. I mean, our plan would be to rely on the team that we've been using on all the work, which, you know, is Sopers Engineering, DHM, et cetera, so.
Well, on the site plan review piece, and Tom could weigh in on some of it, it is a town-owned parcel, and by town-owned parcels, there's location and extent and other ways to look at it. But either way, we need to do a public, transparent process. So that's the key of the site plan review, is a public, transparent process. So, and you know what, honestly, to me, I would love something this summer, and maybe there's, it's just, the reality is let's get this right, and we're not trying to look at another vote or anything else. We're trying to do what we own and build a park. And so a usable park for people. And so I think, with DHM and our post committee, I have good confidence that we'll come up with something that's, yes, it's not what we envisioned in what went out to the voters, but they didn't approve it. So I think we'll come up with something else. So. You good? Cool. Well, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie, and you can go home and go to bed.
Yeah.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work.
Thanks, Yancy,
Thank you.
Stephen, and Laura. And you taking off?
I don't know if you mean for this last one.
You leaving tonight, or you? Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Safe trip.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Give me a call.
Drive safely, Bruce.
Okay, we are on the last item, a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 33, series of 2006, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, Chapter 16, zoning of the municipal code of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, amending Article 21, rivers, wetlands, and environmentally sensitive areas to address floodplain regulations in Reach 2 of the Roaring Fork River. Susan.
Okay, this is a public hearing and second reading of the amendments that we're making to the town code. And Yancey's walking out the door, but he was involved with helping us do these changes. We had a team made up of Robert Crabell, who was our river hydrologist, Yancey, David Kotz from SVM, and our consultant from URS that's now, anyway, our engineers have made recommendations of how we deal with our code. I gave a lot more explanation at the first reading. This is really because the south side floodplain was taken out of the floodway designation, and we have new maps that were effective in November. And so we promised that we would follow up with code amendments, and, once we have these code amendments underway and we have some development projects that we review against them, we might come back and make further changes to the code. So again, this is a public hearing, and we're looking for action at second reading.
Okay. Yancy, did you have anything to add?
Only if you have a question about where we landed. I do support what Susan said, is we may learn as we move forward with the projects that go through the process. Try to get something on the table very quickly from the south side that's better than what we can. So as engineers, we think we might be able to simplify it, but we're not comfortable there yet.
Cool. All right, thanks. So I'll open the public hearing at 8:37. Is there anyone from the public who want to speak on this? Nobody here. Robin, you're the public. Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at 8:37.
You didn't make any changes, did you, Susan?
No, the only thing I did was we kind of made a correction to the description of what we were changing, but not to actually any language.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 33, series of 2016, on second reading.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yancy.
Thank you. I move that we terminate. Are we ready for that
Yes.
yet? Adjourn.
Terminate.
Who are we terminating?
I don't know, I was like,
Terminate, which is it?
is there a second?
Oh, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.